A bully named Logan is seen harassing a fat kid. He kicks the kid in the head and the kid's face smashes against the wall. Later in the day, Logan, the bully, uses a gum pistol on the weak kid. The bully tells the kid to do something funny and he turns into Pikachu, which amuses the bully. This is the daily life of Daniel Park. After school, Daniel, the fat kid, is about to eat the supper his mom made for him but sees there are eggs in his ramen. This angers him, but he doesn't tell his mom that the ramen actually tastes good. He asks her if he can transfer school because he lies and says it is because everyone has good grades unlike him. Daniel's mom says that she cannot transfer him because they are too poor. This causes him to lash out and storm out of the room. He is later seen crying in bed, regretting how he treated his mom. The next day, Daniel is dreading going to school. He wished to himself that one day he would be strong and could beat the bully, Logan. Daniel's mom is seen in the school office trying to get him a transfer to another school. However, his grades are too low, and it would be too expensive. Logan is once again bullying Daniel. He kicks a soccer ball at his head and missed. This is when someone who has a suspiciously close resemblance to Messi kicks the ball with a long windup and caves Daniel's face in. Logan is still mad that Daniel was able to dodge his kick, so he started smacking him in the face, and this is when Daniel's mother rushes in. She screams at Logan and goes to check up on Daniel. The bullies are getting very angry and some of the female classmates start to gossip about him. Daniel's mom then unleashes an attack on Logan. Daniel looks over at the gossiping girls and starts to blush. Daniel's mom then starts questioning Logan, asking him why he is bullying her son and that he must go to the homeroom teacher immediately. Daniel once again lashes out at his mom. He says that she is embarrassing her. His mom is now being crowded and apologizes to Logan. Daniel tells her to leave. He knows he is treating his mom badly, calling himself the world's biggest piece of trash on the walk home. Walking in, he sees his mom is home and their bills are piling up. He tries to sneak inside but is caught by his mom and she says that they need to talk. While Daniel is wondering what his mom is going to say, his mom says he can transfer schools. She says that she hasn't been taking enough care of Daniel. She changed her decision from earlier because she realized that Daniel's friends were actually bullies. Daniel is startled after finding out that she realized they aren't his friends. His mom said to trust her and go and that she will take care of the expenses. After hearing those words, Daniel broke down in tears. Later he is seen on bus munching on an egg and getting ready to have a fresh start. He arrives at his street and his house is revealed to be an old shack, but Daniel Park could not be any happier. He is excited for his new life with no bullies. He goes to a barber shop, and since he is ugly, the barber takes him to the corner of the shop, but Daniel is happy. The haircut is revealed, and while walking in the public, everyone is shooting him dirty looks. He gets embarrassed from all the new attention and sees himself in a mirror. He thinks he has gotten a little tougher. He starts throwing jabs in front of his reflection. He catches someone staring at him and he gets extremely nervous. Her boyfriend walks up to them and confronts Daniel. The boyfriend wants to pick a fight with Daniel, but his girlfriend calms him down. He calls Daniel lucky and that he won't forget his face. His girlfriend apologizes. After that interaction, he misinterprets the girlfriend's apologetic gesture and thought that she was actually winking at him and that she was interested in him. He catches up to them and picks a fight on the boyfriend. In a second, the boyfriend lunges forwards and gets Daniel right in the jaw. People crowded around the fight and Daniel is humiliated in front of the public. After going home, he finds out that a video was posted of the fight and it had gone viral. Feeling sorry for himself, he tries to cry himself to sleep. After waking up, he goes to the bathroom and feels taller and a lot lighter. After looking up and seeing his reflection in the mirror, he realizes he has been granted a perfect body. He thinks it is a dream and stumbles back only to find out that his other body was still sleeping. Hiding in the bathroom, he is still in disbelief of his strange new body. His body was filled with toned muscles. He was sure it was not a dream. Daniel searched the internet to try and find any information, but he could not find anything. He thought about calling his mom or calling 911, but he came to the conclusion that they would try to experiment on him and use him as a lab rat. Daniel tried waking himself up. He kept shaking his body, but it would not wake up, so he resorted to slapping himself. After the slap, he woke up in his normal body. He thought it was a dream after all, so he got up to go to the bathroom, but in the process he saw the other body he was just in. Curious, he tried waking the other body up, and the exact same time he went unconscious in his original body, he woke up in his new body. He told himself that he can't tell anyone about his new secret. The rules of the body swap is that when one body is awake, the other body has to be asleep. You have to fall asleep to change bodies. Daniel stayed in his house for the next few days trying to learn more about the body swap. He found out that his hunger and thirst, among other things, transfer from one body to the other. So if Daniel's original's body is hungry and thirsty and he sleeps and wakes up in the new body, he would still be hungry and thirsty. He agreed to himself that he needs a good sleep schedule, so he will switch bodies every 12 hours. And since when one body was asleep the other was awake, it was impossible to be unconscious since it would just transfer from one body to the other. A few days later it's time for Daniel to start school, but he is very anxious. He arrives at school and girls immediately start blushing. Daniel thinks to himself that the world looks so tiny from the perspective of his newfound body that the girls called a 10 out of 10. However, while he is walking into school, the only thought on his mind is that he hopes to not be bullied. 3 students are seen in a classroom complaining about it being too hot. One of them commands a nerd to start fanning faster. The nerd starts fanning faster with a book and thinks to himself that he is being humiliated and that he doesn't want to live anymore. A girl turns around complaining about it being too cold, but she is told to shut up. But when an attractive classmate says it's cold, one of the bullies tells the nerd to stop. The teacher arrives and introduces a new student. The transfer student walks in and everyone's jaw drops. The new student is revealed to be Daniel Park. Daniel gets nervous because everyone is looking at him. As he goes to sit down, all the girls are in awe. However, the guys are all threatened by him. But there was one person who didn't have any reaction to him at all. He greets the person sitting next to him only to find out it was the boyfriend who beat him up in front of a crowd. However, he does not realize the person sitting next to him and the person he beat up are the same person. Understandably so. A girl named Zoe introduces herself after class. Daniel didn't know how to react because he had never been flirted with before. The boyfriend, whose name is revealed to be Zach, disrupts the conversation saying Zoe's flirting was annoying him. He glances over at his girlfriend, whose name is Mira. She is staring at Daniel. This makes Zach angry. The bell rings and they all go to lunch. Everyone in the cafeteria is seen staring at the new transfer student. But once again, Daniel is oblivious of his good looks and he is just happy he does not have to serve anyone else food, which is what he had to do to his bullies in the old school. The 3 students from earlier tell Daniel that they want to talk to him after lunch. After arriving, Daniel thinks they are going to beat him up, but instead they offer him a cigarette and ask questions about his life. This shocks him, as he was always used to people bullying him and talking down to him. Back in class, Daniel falls asleep as he spent too long worrying about school all night long. He wakes up in his original body. He curls himself up in a blanket and immediately tries to sleep again. He wakes up at school and Zoe, who is trying to get him to wake up, is startled by his sudden jerk. Later, at night, Daniel is shown at a convenience store. He explains that he got the job on the way back from school. He walked in the store, but in his new body, and he is hired instantly. The store owner thought that attractive employee would attract new customers. After he got the job, he told the owner that he is actually asking about the job for a friend of his. In the next slide we can see the store owner angry as he was expecting Daniel's friend to be good looking too. So Daniel officially got the job, but because he was not attractive his wage was cut down. This will be how Daniel uses his new ability to switch bodies. Attractive Daniel by day and ugly Daniel by night. Customers walk into the store and Daniel realizes that 2 of them are his classmates. One of them asks for 4 packs of cigarettes. Daniel asks for his ID, but when he takes a look at it, the ID says he was born in 1984. The picture does not look like him at all, so he refuses to give them the cigarettes. He threatens Daniel saying that he just gained weight. Just then the door swings open and Zach is shown leaning on the door. He tells them to stop messing around and that they can just go to another store. He thinks to himself that the worker looks familiar, and he realizes Daniel is the person who tried to pick a fight with him in front of Mira. Daniel's heart starts to beat. Zach smirks and tells Daniel he wants to buy booze. He said that he will forgive Daniel if he buys them the booze. He tries to threaten Daniel with an intimidating glare. However, his friends in the background start talking and they think Zach is buying booze for his girlfriend to impress her, because she has been staring at the new transfer student a lot lately. This infuriates Zach and he loses his temper and unleashes it all on Daniel's face. After a beatdown, he is shown with his pants down and one of his classmates taking a picture of him. He tells him that he will post the picture if Daniel tells the police that he was beaten up. Daniel is squatting near some trash and thinks to himself that he can't rely on his mom anymore. He calls his mom and she asks him what he is doing being up so late, and he tells her that he is just taking a night stroll. His mom says that she is on a night stroll too. She asks about school and Daniel tells her he is really popular. This makes his mom happy and we zoom out to see that she isn't on a walk but actually working hard to afford Daniel's new school. Daniel hangs up the phone telling his mom he loves her. The next day he wakes up in his new body. He feels powerful and light. At school, girls are once again talking about his looks. He walks into class and overhears his classmates talking about beating someone up and taking a picture of them, nude. Zach is proud of himself as he thinks it will impress Mira. This puts Daniel in a foul mood and he clenches his fist. Zoe wants to see the picture, but since Daniel just joined the conversation, She doesn't want to leave a bad impression. A few of the classmates start praising Zach because of his boxing abilities. He loves the praise but tries to play it off cool, telling them that he is not proud of his skills at all. He looks over at Mira expecting her to be impressed and Daniel to be scared, but instead Mira is irritated that Zach got into another fight. She tells her friend that he is always fighting and getting into trouble. She tells her about a time Zach invited her to a movie and got into a fight with a defenseless kid. Her friend tells her that she is not really surprised he is so strong because he was a rising boxer in middle school. Zach starts boasting about his boxing knowledge and says that he should have thrown a jab and not a straight punch on the convenience store worker, which impresses everyone. Daniel starts asking himself why he has to sit next to Zach, and two girls come up and ask him if he has a girlfriend. Zoe instantly moves in and talks over the two girls, asking Daniel if he would like to hang out with her sometime. While this is happening, we are shown the mysterious student who has not spoken a word yet listening to their conversation. One of his classmates then mentioned that if the worker from the convenience is a pig, his mom is too. He says he will strip both of them naked and says that if he was the pig's mother he would have given up on him. Daniel gets their attention and tells them with a serious face that they have gone too far. Everyone in the class instantly goes silent. Mira is impressed by Daniel's authority and this pisses Zach off. He kicks a table and tries to pick a fight with Daniel, calling him a worm. They take the fight outside and people from other classes go to watch the fight between the boxer and the pretty face. Zach tells Daniel to come at him but he stands still. Everyone thinks the transfer student is weak and that they all got scared for nothing. Just as Zach is about to punch Daniel, the mysterious classmate grabs Zach's arm. Because of the mysterious student's grip, Zach can't even move his hand. He looks over at Mira who is watching him and shakes him off. He goes for Daniel's face but he sees his fist and we get a flashback to Daniel at his old school because he got beat up so often he could read a fist's movement, but in his original body he did not have the physical abilities to dodge them. But now in his new body he could easily dodge the fists coming at him. Everyone is surprised by Daniel's dodge against lightning fist Zach Lee. But the most shocked person is Daniel himself, realizing his body can now move as he desired. We are in the mind of Zach and he is thinking back to when he was the fastest kid in kindergarten. In elementary school he used to bully others, and that progressed into a boxing career in middle school where he wins his fight and is taken to the finals. And in high school he continued to assert his dominance to those weaker than him. He called life so easy because he knows how to fight. We are brought back to the present, and Daniel is dodging all of Zach's attacks. One after another his body moves right to left, not letting a single attack connect. Zach realizes Daniel has a lot of fighting experience. Mira is watching the fight and Zach is tired of being humiliated, so he throws a right and then switches to a left. Daniel can't avoid the punch, but just in the nick of time he stops his punch right in front of his face. Everyone is speechless and Zach thinks that Daniel anticipated the feint punch. Zach calls Daniel a real fighter because of how cool and composed he is, but from Daniel's perspective he is sweating profusely. He knows it's getting harder and harder to dodge and is not sure if he can stop the next attack. After looking into the crowd and seeing the look on the faces of the students who talked bad about his mom, he remembered all the bad things they said about her. The emotions exploded out of him and he started dodging the punches a lot easier. He thinks about the time he got gum pistoled by Logan in his old school and remembers him saying your first punch should always be to the solar plexus. After dodging a right hook, he moved in and caught him right in the middle of his chest, sweeping Zach completely off his feet. This punch left his underlings gobsmacked as well as everyone else watching the fight. Zach could not even stand up and they all started cheering for Daniel. This was the first time Daniel was able to look down on an opponent. Zach sees Mira looking at him as he is helpless on the ground and he swears to pluck the eyes out of everyone who smiled after he was defeated. After the fight was disbanded, we can see the mysterious student in a bathroom and he overhears students plotting against Daniel. They agree to beat him up after school, and just before the scene changes, the mysterious student swings the stall door open. We are then introduced to the head of the 3 different school clubs. Vin Jean of the vocal and dance department, Eli Jang of the beauty department, and Vasco of the architecture department. A nerd walks into the bathroom as the mysterious student is walking out and we can see the aftermath of a brutal and one-sided fight. This is when the mysterious student's name is revealed to be Jay. Daniel is now at home and is reminiscing about what happened earlier that day. He said it was his first time landing a blow on anyone, and his first time getting cheered on by other people. If he were in his original body, people would just call him cruel and that he looks like an ogre. He is now at his job. He thinks about losing weight but tells himself that he doesn't have enough time because he is always busy. A man buys something and he starts to look at Daniel weirdly. Daniel says to himself that most people who come through the convenience store often give him weird looks. They all judge him by his first impressions. The beggar asks for change but then retracts his statement and says Daniel can keep it. Even beggars feel pity for him. It's 3 a.m. and since there are not a lot of customers, Daniel starts to do some exercises. He lunges from the left and then to the right. He is able to do one push-up. Just then, a girl walks through the door and Daniel thinks to himself that she is gorgeous. He thinks she will judge him too and look at him like an insect. But instead she compliments him, she apologizes if she startled him and this kind gesture moves Daniel. She also buys him a drink saying that he must be tired. She bids him a good night and leaves. Zach's underlings are shown walking down a street with a woman. The three underlings think about the fight earlier that day and worry that the rumor of them all being beaten up by Jay in the bathroom stall will spread. The only person who saw it was the nerd whose name is Jiho. Although they have a naked picture of him, they decide to call him just for further insurance. He rushes out the door and sprints to them. He arrives and they tell him he is late. One of the bullies says that because he took so long, his phone ran out of battery, so he wants Jiho to steal a charger. He begs them saying that stealing is a crime, but they don't care. They say that if he commits a crime, then they have further insurance that he can't spread the rumor. He nervously walks in. He thinks to himself that he has never shoplifted before. Jiho is worried that the store worker won't be a pushover, but as soon as they lock eyes they can tell that they are both in the same rank of the social hierarchy. He remembers what he came here for and starts sweating profusely. After he picks up the charger, he quickly tucks it under his shirt and darts for the door. Daniel tries to grab him but misses. Jiho cowardly tells him that he will pay next time, but as he's trying to run away he trips on his own leg and falls down. Instead of being angry, Daniel tries to help him up saying he will get in trouble if he leaves without paying. Jiho is thankful that he is a nice guy. Just then the group of bullies walks in and tell Jiho that they are disappointed in him for not being able to even steal a single charger. Daniel gets nervous as they shift their gaze to him. They force the two to battle each other. They call it the contest of the week. The bullies tell Jiho and Daniel that if either of them tell on them, they will spread the nude pics of both of them. Someone is listening to music and overhears the commotion behind him. It is the leader of the architecture department, Vasco. Neither Daniel or Jiho is fighting, so the bullies tell them that whoever wins gets to have their nude pic deleted. But the two still don't want to fight, so they tell Jiho that if he wins he doesn't have to serve them anymore. He thinks about all the bad things they have done to him over the years and clenches his fist, readying himself for battle. Jiho lunges forward and starts slapping Daniel with all his might. The bullies are amused at the sight of this, but at that moment a voice from behind tells them to stop the fighting. They turn around and they see Vasco walking towards them. The bullies are shocked and the two losers are unsure of what to do. Vasco grabs one of the bullies by the neck and calls them bad guys. The bully is lifted off the ground. Vasco tells all of them to go home, leaving just the three of them. They thank him and he recognizes one of them from school. He asks which department they are from. They say the fashion department and Vasco asks if that's the same class as the new transfer who knocked down Zach. Daniel tells him that he's correct. Vasco tells Daniel to tell the transfer student to not screw around. Daniel agrees while trembling because he is unsure of the reason Vasco is crying. At school Jiho is seen getting food for his bullies. He meets eyes with Jiho while in his new body and he calls him to come sit with him. With a big smile he exclaims that they are in the same class so they should eat together. Jiho is surprised from this weird gesture. Zach and his gang walk into the cafeteria and see Jiho with the new transfer student. Zach thinks Daniel is just trying to make him look bad until he hears someone in the background talking about Daniel saying he is the one who took down Zach. His head turns around in an instant and it's the head of the vocal and dance department, Vin Jin. He asks Zach if he really lost to that pretty boy. Zach admits that he was taken down by Daniel, but he tells Vin Jin that he could probably take him down. This angers him and asks Zach if he wants to die. Zach throws a punch and stops right in front of Vin Jin's face, telling him to try him. Vin Jin thinks to himself that Zach really is fast and that if he really hit him, he would have thrown him away. Daniel hears someone talking behind him, so he turns around and sees the architecture department. Daniel wants to thank Vasco for saving him yesterday, so he shouts out hi to Vasco. Only after this does he realize that Vasco won't recognize him because he is in his new body and not his original one. Vasco's second in command thinks he is trying to start a fight with him. He thinks that Daniel is just dragging around Jiho to make himself look better, so Vasco walks up to him and calls him a bad guy. Vasco asks Daniel who he is and how does he know him. He asks Daniel if he has ever been taken down. He puts his hand on his shoulder and squeezes hard. Everyone thinks that it's the end of the fight because no one has ever been able to survive the squeeze of death. Daniel withstands the squeeze and thinks to himself that it was wrong for him to be friendly with Vasco since he didn't know who he was in his new body. Vasco is struggling to keep the grip. He thinks to himself that no one has ever been able to last this long without going on their knees. Daniel grabs his hand and apologizes for startling him. Everyone's jaws drop except for Zach, and Vasco is surprised by his strength. Vin Jin and Zack start to think they might have a real monster in their school. It would be a disaster if word got out that Vasco lost to the new transfer student. It would be a disgrace to the Burn Knuckles, which is the name the architecture crew gave themselves. Vasco winds up for a punch, but a member of Burn Knuckles slides in to stop the fight. He apologizes for the misunderstanding and his name is revealed to be Jace. Daniel is happy he didn't have to fight again. Jace thinks to himself that Daniel could be a real threat and that he needs to keep a close eye on him. Vasco speaks to Jiho and tells him that he needs to believe in himself. He must not surrender to people like Daniel. Bear in mind, Vasco still thinks Daniel is just using Jiho. From the other side of the room, Eli Yang is thinking about Daniel and how handsome and kind he is. He wonders if Daniel will let him cut his hair. We are shown the three bullies talking about a plan to get back at Vasco. They want to get close to Daniel because he stood up to Vasco at lunch and they think he can help them fight. They approach Daniel and tell him that they are having a get-together and that he should join. Daniel immediately says yes because at his old school he was always lonely since he had no friends. The three bullies are very happy with his response and they agree to meet up together at 7. Daniel is happy he had a day off at the convenience store. We can see Zoe eavesdropping on the conversation. That night Daniel asks them where the hangout is and they tell him it is at the second floor of a restaurant. Daniel is happy to finally have friends to hang out with. He says to himself that his old chats used to be prison. He goes into the alley and thinks to himself that the restaurant looks run down. He climbs the stairs and wonders if it will be one of those hidden gourmet places. He arrives at the door and takes a deep breath. He opens the door and the first thing that hits him is the hazy, unpleasant smell of cigarettes. Zack is pissed off and asks why Daniel was invited. One of the bullies tells him to come and sit as he must be hungry. Zoe says that she was walking by and just happened to bump into them. Zoe invites Daniel to come sit next to her. Daniel was thinking that he had fallen into the wrong set of friends. He says to himself that he wishes his mom was there with him right now. He felt as if he was trespassing on forbidden territory. They pour him some booze, and they are about to cheers, but Daniel exclaims that he doesn't actually drink. They all tell him he is lying and that he must drink the alcohol. After telling them multiple times that he won't drink, they give in. One of the bullies say he doesn't want to drink because he is a poor drinker, but Daniel keeps repeating that he just doesn't like to drink. Zack started taking shots like there's no tomorrow. The bullies start talking to each other and since everyone's drunk, half of the words they use are all swear words. Daniel wants to leave as soon as possible. One of Zack's henchmen asks him where he lives and Daniel answers by saying that he lives on his own. This surprises everyone since they are all high school kids still. They crowd Daniel with questions asking if they could stay with him, but he says there's only space for 2 people and he actually lives with his friend. They ask if his friend goes to their school, but he says that he is a high school dropout. This impresses everyone as he is a lot more rebellious than they all initially thought. Zack speeds up on his shots. Zoe tells Daniel his clothes are quite big and asks if he likes to wear oversized clothes. Daniel explains that they are his friend's clothes and that their frame is quite big. Everyone assumes that his friend is 100% a gangster from his description. They all say in unison that Daniel is a lot more dangerous than they thought. Zack starts taking shots at super speed. The owner comes inside to collect some of the bottles and she locks eyes with Daniel. She is instantly swept away. She wonders to herself who the pretty boy is. Her husband died 10 years ago, so she thinks this is a present from heaven to cure her loneliness. She makes a move on Daniel asking if there's anything else he wants to eat. This ticks Zoe off, so she retaliates by getting nice and close to Daniel. The owner is annoyed that Zoe is being aggressive, so she acts as if her hair tie is coming loose to expose her chest. All of Zack's underlings start to have nosebleeds. Daniel is now stuck between 2 animals, a dragon and a tiger. Zack wishes that Mira was with him. The other group in the room realize that they are school kids and complains that they are making too much noise. Zack nearly passes out from all the alcohol. He gets Daniel's attention and Daniel thinks that he is going to try and swing at him, but instead he starts talking about how he is jealous that Daniel is so handsome. He asks Daniel if they can be friends and that they can hug it out. He then proceeds to kiss him. This surprises Zoe, but not the other 3, as apparently this isn't the first time he has done this. She gives Daniel a cup of water saying he must be tired. He starts gulping the water only to realize it's booze. He apologizes to his mom for underage drinking and committing a grave crime. The other group yells at them, telling them to keep the volume levels down. They say that kids have no manners anymore. They talk amongst themselves, wondering if they should teach them a lesson. The women comments, saying that it is always the women with big chests that have the ugliest faces. Zoe breaks the shot glass she is holding and grits her teeth. Daniel tried to get Zoe to calm down, but she retaliates by asking the women if she is wearing a bra just to stay warm. Daniel gets more nervous for the battle that's about to occur. The room goes silent for a second and the woman erupts, daring her to say it again. Zoe plays dumb and the woman tells Zoe to stop playing innocent. They start calling each other very bad names I can't say on YouTube, and we can see the reactions of everyone around the room. While this is happening, Daniel's eyesight begins to get blurry. His heart starts to race and he says he feels strange. Daniel is now drunk. One of the men get up to teach the kids a lesson and they all try to avert his gaze. He asks the kids how old they are and they think to themselves that even if they fight, they have Zach, but he is flat out wasted and is apologizing to the grown-ups. They glance over at Daniel and they can tell he is acting strange. They can all tell that he is clearly irritated. The bullies think to themselves that they might have a shot if Daniel is fighting as well. They answer that they are all 20 years old, and the grown-ups follow up by asking them for their IDs. They reject. The grown-up with the brown beanie goes for one of the bullies. He yanks his head back by pulling his hair. Just as he is about to smack him, Daniel shouts out to the grown-up. He gets their attention and asks them with a serious face what they are doing and are they trying to pick a fight. Daniel thinks to himself that it's weird he feels no fear in front of the adults. He points at the bullies and reprimands them for underage drinking, insulting mothers, and always looking for trouble. He asks them if it's fun hitting people and if they enjoy acting like fools. He tells one of the bullies, who he calls Pointy, to give him his phone. Mr. Beanie thinks that he's scared and wants to call his mom, but instead he smashes the phone with nothing but his bare hands. He tells them to never take dirty pictures of anyone ever again. Everyone in the room gets scared from his show of strength. Daniel thinks to himself that they need to apologize. So he goes ahead and grabs a bottle of booze so that they all could raise a glass and forgive each other. But instead, he drops the bottle by mistake. When he tries to grab it, the bottom of the bottle hits the floor so it looks like Daniel is now wielding a lethal weapon. Daniel says that he just wanted to pour them a drink but his hands got slippery. Everyone assumes that he did it on purpose and just made it look like an accident. The bullies call him an evil genius. Daniel continues to apologize while holding the weapon, so everyone still thinks he intends to use it. Two of the adults get scared but the woman starts pouting at the sight of her man acting so weak. So he gets angry and starts shouting at Daniel, telling him that he ruled over a high school called John High. He asks them which school they go to. They tell them again that they are 20, but Zach lets the cat out the bag, telling them that they are first-year fashion students at J High. Mr. Beanie tells Mr. Necklace that J High is notorious for strong fighters, but they think it will be alright since they are just first years. Daniel tells himself that they have messed up big time and tries to apologize again, but, while holding the bottle, the adults call him a maniac.
Mr. Beanie nervously tells Daniel that since he apologized, they will give him a break. Mr. Necklace starts backing away, telling his girlfriend that they need to get out of there now. Daniel gets confused as to why they left so quickly. Everyone starts to praise Daniel after scaring the adults away. They talk to themselves, saying that they were all pooping their pants. Daniel is clueless as to why the adults left the fight so suddenly. The scene changes and we are shown the adults smoking in an alleyway. They are annoyed that a bunch of high schoolers got the better of them, so Mr. Necklace tells his girlfriend to call some of the juniors of the school he used to rule over to get some payback. They arrive and stand at attention. He asks them what year they are in, and Glasses tells him they are seniors now. Mr. Necklace asks Glasses if he can ride his bike, and Glasses says yes. But he didn't have the bike with him at that moment. He tells him he is lying, but he stands by the fact that he doesn't have it. Mr. Necklace changes the subject and asks Glasses if he knows anyone from the fashion department at J High. He tells him he does know one person, but he doesn't like mixing with them because everyone from J High is known to be crazies. Necklace cuts him off and tells him to bring that person to him. Glasses asks him why he wants him, and he tells him because there is someone that needs to be taught a lesson on how to act towards people older than them. We are back with Daniel, and he thinks to himself that the liquor has started to kick in. The bullies start talking to each other about previous fights they had and everyone they have beaten up. One of them tries to get close with Daniel, but he shoots him a death glare. The bully is stunned. Daniel looks him dead in the eye and says 2 words, "Let's go." The authority that Daniel put into those words shocked everyone around the table. The alcohol has affected his balance, and he needs to sit down. He says he is thirsty, so he goes to drink some water, and halfway through he realizes it is more alcohol. He starts to get sleepy from all the booze he has drunk. His vision starts to get blurry, and his eyes start to close. He wakes up in his original body. Now that he is not intoxicated, he gets embarrassed about all the things he did and said. He goes back to sleep to switch bodies again. He wakes up in his house again. He looks at the ceiling and at his hand, An hour has passed, and he comes to the realization that he didn't change bodies. He gets dressed in world record time and darts out the door. He ran up the stairs, looked around the corner, and saw his body lying there, being slapped by the bullies who are trying to wake him up. Daniel wonders to himself why he couldn't change back. Just then, one of the bullies turns around and sees him standing there. He asks him who he is and why he is just standing there. They recognize him as the fatty from the convenience store. Daniel gets scared as their friendly expressions from earlier have turned into hungry hyenas. Two bullies start towering over him, and the other bully asks him if he wants them to take naked pictures of him again. Zoe gives him a sour look, and the owner of the place demands him to show her his ID, or he must get out. He looks down and sees his passed-out body on the floor. Daniel thinks to himself how he will explain to everyone why he needs to take his other body home. Just then, Zach comes crashing through with a large smile on his face. Zach gives Daniel a great hug and says he is so happy to see him. He gets defensive of him since everyone was looking at him like prey before. He gives Daniel some booze and asks him if he wants to drink. Daniel is relieved that Zach is drunk right now, otherwise it would be a one-sided beatdown. Zach asks him why he is here, and Daniel says that he is here to get his friend Daniel. This shocks everyone, as they wouldn't think that Daniel in his new body would hang out with people like Daniel in his original body. They call him a liar, but he insists that Daniel knows him. Zoe connects the dots of their conversation earlier and asks if he is the mafia boss that stays with him. Daniel replies by saying that he was ordered to fetch Daniel by his housemate. This story is a lot more believable, since Daniel in his original body does not give off mob boss vibes. Zoe gets excited and asks him if he knows where Daniel lives. Daniel dismisses her questions and Zach goes over and comforts Daniel. He tells Daniel that he wants to take them somewhere as a reconciliation gift. We are shown Daniel carrying his other body on a road. They arrive at an arcade where there is a punch power machine. Zach tells him to watch close. He tries to teach Daniel how to throw a proper punch. He gets his stance and tells him to guard your cheek with your other fist. He puts both his arms up and shows him the basic posture of boxing. He takes one step forward and moves the weight from his pelvis into his shoulder. He throws the punch, moves the weight into his fist, and jams it into the machine. The machine exclaims that Zach got a new record, and then he goes back to being drunk. Zach wishes Daniel a good night, and the bullies follow him. Daniel looks at the punching machine and wonders to himself if he should give it a shot. He looks around to see if anyone is watching him. He bundles up his fist, throws his fists like a boxer, lunges forward, takes a deep breath, and completely misses the punching pad. Feeling completely embarrassed, he picks up Daniel and walks home. Vasco comes out of a shop with Jace and sees Zach's new record. He tries it for himself and beats Zach's record by 18 points. Just before he is about to leave, he sees a rip mark on the side of the pad where Daniel threw his punch. Vasco thinks to himself that even though Daniel only grazed it, the pad was ripped through the plastic and into the cushioning. Vasco glances at Daniel, who is walking away, and wonders to himself if Daniel will ever overpower him one day. Daniel finally makes it home with his new body. It's the next day, and two girls start admiring Zach. He has a date, and he promised not to pick a fight with anyone. A few hours earlier, we can see Mira talking to her friend, and she mentions that she's going to walk to the library later to study. From behind, Zach asks Mira that he will be studying too, and asks if they can go together. She looks him dead in the eye and tells him no. Mira says that Zach gets into too many fights, but he promises to not fight while blushing. And this was enough to get a yes from Mira. We are back to the present, and Zach is reminding himself that he absolutely cannot fight with anyone. Mira calls out for Zach, and she says that she is excited to go to the library with him. They arrive at the library, and Zach is excited to spend time with his girlfriend. Zach starts thinking of them sitting next to each other and eating together. He thinks to himself that he is in heaven. Not too soon after they sit down, he gets incredibly bored. He starts making marks on the desk to entertain himself. Apparently, the girls' and the boys' study room is separate, so they aren't allowed to sit next to each other. He starts grumbling to himself, and one of the students that are studying there asks him politely to quieten down. Zach shoots him a death glare but calms himself, so he doesn't end up in a fight. His phone buzzes, and we are shown messages from Mira, asking him to meet her at the snack bar because she is hungry. Zach is excited to see Mira after what felt like eternity. The scene changes, and we are shown two of the adults from the bar, and they are arguing about something. Mid-conversation, the girl stops and looks at Mira and Zach from the other side of the room. She recognizes Zach from the bar, and Mr. Necklace remembers him as being the weakest one. He glances at her chest and gets annoyed that his girlfriend doesn't have the same thing. He looks over at his girlfriend, and she also starts to get frustrated. Zach is innocently munching down on a corn dog. He looks around the room and notices that they aren't the only couple at the library. He tells Mira he is going outside for some fresh air and takes out his cigarettes. He hasn't told Mira he has started smoking yet, so he must smoke in secret. He sees two people walking up to him, so he looks at them intimidatingly. They ask for some directions, and he politely gives it to them, hiding his cigarette as a show of respect. Mira is revealed to have been watching him this whole time, and she is happy to see Zach being kind to other people. The adults from the bar show up, and they underestimate him because their only impression of him is when he was previously drunk. They tell him to call his friend from before, but instead he just blankly looks at them. The scene changes, and we can see Daniel's mom looking at a piece of paper with an address on it. The scene switches back to Zach, and the grown-ups continue to berate him with insults. They talk to each other about how he cried like a little baby last time they met, and this makes him embarrassed and wishing he never got drunk that night. Zach looks at them with a serious face and asks them if they are trying to start a fight. Just then, he remembers Mira telling him that she doesn't like it when he fights. He allows them to go and says it's their lucky day. They all burst out in tears and start pointing fingers at him. Mr. Necklace asks Zach if he has lost his marbles, and they all continue to laugh at him. He turns around telling them that he won't give them a second chance. Just then the adults look like they are plotting something devious. He joins back with Mira, and he asks her if she wants anything to drink. He goes to the till and asks for 2 sodas. Just then Mr. Necklace and Mr. Beanie cut in line and call him a loser. However, Zach remains calm and tells them not to cut in. They ask him what he is going to do if they cut in, and they show Zach their big friend who will protect them. One of them pets Zach as if he is their pet, and he clenches his fist in anger, but he can't start a fight, otherwise Mira will be upset. So he removes himself and Mira from the room, so he doesn't start a fight. The adults are angry. They didn't get to show off their big friend. As Zach arrives at his desk, he realizes his potato chips he bought for Mira have been stolen. He hears some crunching from across the room, and he sees the 3 adults munching on his snack. He is taken aback and starts to get furious, but clenches his fist once again and can control his anger. Later, the big guy is seen shooting rubber bands at Zach. He shoots him a death glare and tells him to stop irritating him. They pretend to be scared, before erupting into laughter again. Zach gets up and slams the door on the way out. He is trying to stop himself from exploding in anger, and just in the nick of time, Mira slides in, next to Zach. She asks him if Mr. Necklace and Mr. Beanie are trying to start a fight with him, but he denies it. Suddenly, the big guy shows up and messes up his hair that he spent an hour getting ready. He is at the breaking point while telling them to go away nicely. The big guy persists, asking Mira for her number, and tells her that she is way out of Zach's league. She stands up in defense of Zach and signals to him that she wants to leave. Just then, the big guy pins Mira under his arm and tells her he wants more than just her number, while moving his hand to her chest. But before he could carry out this terrible act, Zach darts towards him and sucker punches him right in the jaw, sending multiple teeth straight to the tooth fairy. The adults are speechless at his sudden act of bravery and strength. Zach apologizes to Mira for breaking their promise of no fighting. Now that Zach has broken the promise, he takes his anger out on Mr. Beanie and Mr. Necklace. He tells them to never lay a finger on her again, and Mira is shown with a smug look on her face. The scene changes, and we can see Daniel's mom waiting for him to wake up. She thinks to herself that he must have been exhausted since he is in deep sleep mode. We can see Daniel in his new body at the door, and he wonders why the door is open and hopes no one has broken into his house. The scene switches again, and we can see Zach apologizing to Mira for breaking their promise. However, it is revealed that she is actually happy that he stood up for her, and she wants to go on another trip to the library with him. We switch back to the scene with Daniel's mom, and she wonders whether to wake him up or not. Just as she is about to nudge Daniel, in his new body, walks through the door. His mother turns around and asks who he is. Daniel is gobsmacked that his mother is in his house. He starts thinking of an excuse to say. He greets his mom, asking if she is Daniel's mom. He says that he has heard a lot about her and explains that Daniel is living with a friend to cut down on the rent, and he is that friend. He tells his mom that Daniel sleeps during the day after school so that he can be energized for his part-time job so that he can afford his living expenses. His mom has a smile on her face and says that Daniel has grown up. She asks him for his name, and he says it is Park. She says that is similar to her son's name, which is Daniel Park. What a coincidence. She asks if he can tell her a little bit more about Daniel and how it's been living with him. We switch scenes, and we can see Jace in a cafe. He says welcome to the customers walking inside, and the customers are actually Daniel and his mom. Jace instantly recognizes him as the fashion department transfer student. Daniel's mom looks around and can see everyone looking at Park since he is so handsome. He asks her what she wants to drink, and she says she wants an Americano. Daniel's mom looks at the prices and then tugs on Daniel's arm. She asks if she can have water instead, because it is too expensive, and she doesn't want him to spend too much money on her. Daniel is taken aback by his mother's question. He reassures her that he can afford it and gets the 2 Americanas. He starts to remember all the sacrifices his mom had to make for Daniel to transfer school. So buying an Americano is the least that he can do. He makes a promise to himself that one day he will pay back his mother for all the hard labor she had to do for him. Jace puts 3 coffees down on a table, and we zoom out to see a few of the architecture members sitting down. Jace warns Vasco not to get in a fight with him because of what happened last time at school. Otherwise, he will be fired. Daniel's mother starts to boast about her son and says stuff like he grew up to be so big and handsome. Daniels is getting embarrassed as he is hearing things that his mother wouldn't usually say in front of him. She signals Jace and asks if she can take the boxes in the corner of the room. She apologizes to Daniels if she's embarrassing him, but she can't miss out on the opportunity. She asks Daniel not to tell her son about her collecting boxes to earn extra money for his school fees. She takes out a 5,000 yen bill and asks Daniel to continue being friends with him and to please not bully him. Daniel grits his teeth and tries to hold back his tears as he accepts the bill. He knows that 5,000 yen is a lot of money for his mother, so he really doesn't want to take it, but he needs to sell the idea that he is Daniel's friend, Park, and not Daniel. She waves goodbye to Park and tells him that next time she will bring some side dishes to enjoy together. He hears his name being called, so he turns around, and it's Vasco telling him that he's not as honest as he thought. He signals Daniel to follow him as he wants to have a fight. He leads Daniel to a construction site and tells him to prepare himself. He takes off his jacket and tells Daniel to do the same, but he is frozen stiff in fright, so Vasco thinks that Daniel is confident that he can win without getting his clothes creased. Vasco cracks his knuckles and tells him to start the fight. He thinks back to the time that Daniel made original. Daniel carry him on his back, and now even ripping off his mom, but accepting money from her. He tells Daniel that he is unforgivable and puts his arms up ready to start the battle. He tries to back away from the fight, telling him that he's not taking advantage of anyone, but Vasco doesn't want to hear any of it. He throws a left jab and barely misses Daniel's face, missing it by mere centimeters. Vasco starts to wonder how much training Daniel had to do to achieve the physique he has now. Daniel tries to clear up the confusion again by telling Vasco that he is mistaken. But before he can finish his sentence, he goes for a right jab this time, but Daniel is more prepared. Vasco continues throwing punches, but Daniel is able to weave and slide between all of them. He steps back and tries to figure out how to strike Daniel without him being able to dodge. Daniel shouts at Vasco, insisting that he has done nothing wrong. Vasco thinks to himself that Daniel is either a good liar or he feels no guilt. He tells Daniel to give him the money that he received from Daniel's mom. I will give it to the convenience store worker, thinks Vasco. Daniel now starts to think that Vasco is just another bully that steals from the weak. He is used to giving people money, as there was no other way to defend himself. But this time, it's different. This money was given to him by his hard-working mom. It's special to him. So he tells Vasco that he will never let go of the money that Daniel's mom gave to him. Vasco smirks and thinks to himself that Daniel is now showing his true colors. He puts his fists up and imitates Zach's boxing posture. Vasco thinks to himself that if it is an outboxer he is fighting, he can definitely win the fight. He plans to trade blows, but he thinks that he hits harder than him. Vasco puts his fists up, and they resume the fight. Daniel takes a step forward just as Zach would do. Vasco sees that Daniel is imitating Zach's fighting style and moves in as well. They both end up with a fist in front of their face, and Vasco exclaims that he has won. Some time has passed, and we see the bare knuckles at the construction site. They find Vasco's jacket on the floor, so they keep exploring the place, and they find Vasco on the ground, barely able to move. We are now at the convenience store with Daniel's original body. He is happy he still has the money and hopes he didn't kill Vasco by mistake. He thinks back to when he was fighting Vasco and wonders how his body moved when it did. Before Vasco landed the blow, Daniel spun his head around and moved closer to Vasco and performed a backspin elbow straight to his jaw. In that moment, Vasco knew that he couldn't beat Daniel how he is now. Jace stands over Vasco and he mutters, "Jace, I lost." Jace is filled with anger and wants to avenge his friend. We shift our focus to a new character who shares his story about life and finances. He describes his home as pretty standard and his wardrobe as nothing special. If he were in a role-playing game, he'd be fully equipped with just the basic gear. His mom hands him down a pair of his uncle's old shoes, and he decides to wear them to school. He's anxious that his classmates will tease him for wearing shoes that are a decade old. However, as he walks into school, two girls notice his footwear. To his surprise, they reveal that his shoes are actually quite rare, with only a few thousand pairs ever made. This character is named Lee. Lee loved the attention he got from wearing trendy clothes, so he began fixing up vintage shoes to stand out. He also splurged on some fancy glasses and mentioned that he traveled 2 hours just to buy chrome rings that are popular among a famous idol. Feeling all decked out in gold, he heads to class, but soon gets called out by Zach for their matching shoes. Zach doesn't want anyone to think they matching on purpose. However, since Zach is trying to keep the peace for Mira, he just warns him not to let it happen again, and walks off. Lee misinterprets this, thinking that Zach got intimidated by his chrome heart rings and hurried away. Proud of himself, he turns around and notices Jay's fingers, which are also filled with chrome hearts. Looking around, he realizes that others have chrome hearts on their fingers too. Just then, Daniel enters with a big smile, sits next to Zach, but tells him not to talk to him or look at Mira. Lee feels envious of Daniel because he always seems to attract attention, no matter what he wears. He glances at Daniel's bag and notices it's old and worn out. His shoes aren't from a fancy brand either, and it looks like he wears them every day. As Lee talks to himself, he can't help but point out that Daniel's style is lacking, leading him to think Daniel must be struggling financially. Everyone around assumes that since Lee is good-looking, he must be wealthy, so this revelation about Daniel surprises them all. Jay stays quiet, staring out the window, and I can't help but wonder what's on his mind. The scene shifts to the Bare Knuckle Architecture Club, where everyone is waiting for Vasco to show up since he's been missing all day. They start chatting and speculate whether the rumors about him losing a one-on-one match are true. Everyone turns to Jace for some insight, but he remains silent. Suddenly he receives a text from Vasco. A message comes through saying that his screen is broken, and he's curious about the repair costs. He sends Jace a screenshot of his phone to show just how bad the damage is. Jace can't help but think that you can't really show a broken screen with a screenshot, and he struggles to keep from laughing. With Vasco out for a bit, Jace starts to consider how to handle Daniel. He tells everyone that Vasco texted him to take it easy and hold off for now, but one of the crew members sees Vasco's message on Jace's screen and realizes he's just stalling. He thinks to himself that Jace doesn't have what it takes to lead the Bare Knuckles, so he tells himself he needs to step up and restore their leader's honor by himself. The school day is over and we see Jay leaving his desk. Daniel pops up and with a big smile tells him to be safe on his way home. Jay just stares at him. Daniel thanks him for helping him in his fight with Zach. He waves goodbye, saying his mom is about to pick him up. Jay, once again, just stares. Two girls talk about him and say that although he looks like royalty, his clothes and bag make him look like he is poor. The guys in his class call him a beggar and says that without his looks, he is just a cheap-looking loser. They pledge to make the girls know who he really is without his good looks. At the back of the school, we can see 4 members of Burn Knuckles talking amongst themselves, getting ready to beat up the new transfer kid, Daniel. They all start gossiping about Jace, telling each other that he's just a wannabe leader who can't handle things like Vasco does. The ringleader smirks, pleased to see his plans falling into place. But just around the corner, we spot the mysterious Jay, casually smoking a cigarette and listening in on their whole conversation. They're plotting to jump Daniel after school, since that's when he's usually by himself. The next day after school, Daniel is walking home, humming a cheerful tune. Suddenly he runs into someone on a quiet street. Could it be the bare knuckles seeking revenge? Nope. It's Jay, carrying a bag over his shoulder. Daniel asks if he lives nearby too. Without a word, Jay sets the bag down, revealing a tag that says, "Happy Birthday." Daniel looks inside the bag, and it turns out to be filled with expensive clothes. He tells Jay that it is too expensive for him to take, but Jay signals to him saying that he was throwing out the clothes anyway, as they don't fit him anymore. He looks down, thanking Jay for his birthday gift. But when he looks up and asks Jay when his birthday is, he is nowhere to be seen. He looks around and sees a pile of more bags filled with clothes. We see the aftermath of a fight between the Bare Knuckles group that wanted to beat up Daniel and a mysterious fighter who beat them all up. I wonder who it could be. The leader wonders who the blonde guy was who beat them all up, and how he got so strong. It's the next day at school, and the three guys who were previously calling Daniel cheap for not having nice clothing are getting ready to tease him about his empty bank account to make them look better. To the surprise of the three musketeers, Daniel strolls in decked out in the latest fashion. He's rocking a stylish waistcoat, camo rock-stud sneakers, a fancy bag, and a designer watch. The two girls, who were curious about his money situation just a few days ago, are now praising his outfit and saying he looks even more handsome. One of the musketeers asks Daniel about his wallet, since it doesn't have any luxury brand logos on it. Daniel simply replies that it's a gift from his mom, and he wouldn't trade anything in the world for it. Lee starts to rethink his own choices, wondering if all the pricey clothes he bought were really worth it. Everyone keeps complimenting Daniel, saying he must really appreciate his mom. Daniel waves at Jay, thanking him for the clothes he got yesterday, but Jay isn't looking his way. Still, he's thrilled that his new clothes fit him just right, and we can see Jay crack a smile. At a talent agency, we see Vin Jin laying down some amazing beats. The manager mentions that he's one of the top contenders from the latest auditions. He asks if Vin Jin is the last one, and the staff member replies that there's still one more participant. We find out who that last person is, and the manager immediately frowns, instructing the worker to turn away anyone who looks like that. He tells the last participant to leave, and then congratulates Vin Jin for winning the audition. He boards a bus where two girls gossip about him, saying he looks like an otaku and probably doesn't have many friends. He notices the empty seat next to him, but people choose to stand instead. Later, he goes to bed, jotting down lyrics for a new song, and tells his grandma to hang in there a little longer because he's determined to sign with a record label and make enough money so she won't have to work anymore. We're at school, and everyone is showering Vin Jin with compliments for signing with a famous talent agency. He glances at Duke, the guy who got rejected from the agency for not being good-looking enough, and makes a snide remark about feeling bad for being the only one who passed the audition. Then, Vin Jin strides over and kicks Duke in the head, telling him he shouldn't have even bothered showing up, and that he's embarrassed to have him there. Some classmates ask Vin Jin if he plans to participate in the charity date auction at the festival. This auction is a big deal where freshmen enter, and girls bid on different guys for dates, with the highest bidder winning. The girls are chatting about all the guys who will be there and which ones they're interested in. Some girls are really into the guys from the fashion department. Others have a thing for the guys in architecture, and a few are crushing on Eli from the beauty department since he's the only guy there. But most of the girls are super excited about a new transfer student in fashion. The catch is that girls from other schools can also bid for a date with him, which means it's going to be pretty pricey. While the girls are chatting, one of Vin Jin's friends starts writing on Duke's back. At the end of the day, Duke is heading home from school and asks his grandma if she had a lot of sales, but she avoids the question and instead asks if he's hungry, telling him to eat quickly. He explains to her that the food is for selling, not for eating. Just then, he hears someone calling his name, and Duke's heart sinks. It's Vin Jin and his crew. Duke's grandma asks if they are his friends and insists they should eat since they must be starving. They devour all the food at the stall, leaving a huge mess behind that needs to be cleaned up. Duke spots a bag of chips that fell on the ground, and his grandma comments on how energetic his friends are. Duke is left speechless and feels bad, apologizing to his grandma for letting her down. The next day at school, everyone starts making fun of how awful his grandma's cooking is. There are drawings on the board warning everyone not to eat at his grandma's stall. Duke feels a surge of anger as he clenches his fist. Suddenly, Vin-jin yanks Duke's hair and tells him to get out of the walkway. Duke can't help but think that maybe things would be different if he were good-looking and not stuck in his short, chubby body. A girl named Mary asks if there will be any other contestants in the festival besides Vin-jin and his friends. The classmates whisper that there's no way anyone else could win, but then Duke raises his hand and boldly declares that he will be joining the festival too. It's lunchtime, and you can spot Daniel and Jiho grabbing some food. Daniel looks over at a few tables and notices Vin-jin picking on Duke. This brings back memories of how he was treated at his old school. Daniel turns to Jiho and asks if he can invite Duke to join them for lunch. The cafeteria buzzes with reactions as everyone is surprised that someone like Daniel would sit with Jiho and Duke. Vin-jin listens quietly to the chatter about how nice Daniel is being. Suddenly, a cup is thrown in Duke's direction, and Vin-jin tells him to fetch some water. Jay shoots a glare at Vin from behind Daniel. Zach steps in and tells Vin to get the water himself since his hands aren't broken. Vin-jin threatens Zach, asking if he wants to get hurt. Zach retorts by questioning if Vin can even see with those glasses on. Just then, Vasco chimes in. Vin-jin is told by Vasco to pick up his cup. He starts to get annoyed and wonders why everyone is bothering him today. Vasco asks him if his mom ever told him to not throw things on the floor. Frustrated, Vin-jin kicks a chair as he storms out of the cafeteria. Once the chaos settles, all the girls flock to Daniel, asking if he plans to join the charity date auction. Mary comforts Vin-jin, saying she understands why he didn't stand up for himself. Meanwhile, Vasco looks around the room and begins to cry. The school day wraps up, and Daniel is seen cleaning the floor in his classroom. He reflects on the girl's question and considers whether he should perform at the festival. Daniel glances around to check if anyone is nearby. We see Duke wandering through the hallways, lost in thought, wishing he had a tune to go with the lyrics he had jotted down. If only he could find someone who could really sing. Suddenly, Daniel opens his mouth and begins to sing. This immediately grabs Duke's attention. Daniel is perched on the windowsill, belting out a song. Duke feels a rush of excitement, thinking he might have just found his perfect partner. He thinks to himself that Daniel's voice seemed to reach out to him, filled with emotion, space, and a hint of fragrance. I couldn't figure out why his voice felt so isolated, even though he was such an amazing guy, said Duke. When the song finished, Daniel glanced around anxiously, worried that someone might have overheard him. Suddenly, someone on the other side of the door said, "Excuse me." Duke approached Daniel and invited him to perform at the festival. Daniel was completely taken aback. Duke expressed his faith in Daniel's rapping skills and encouraged him, saying that if they teamed up, they would really impress the crowd.
Duke can hardly believe that one of the most popular kids in school is hanging out at his place right now. He secretly hopes that Daniel won't say anything about the house being messy or too small. Daniel notices the light switch and tells Duke he shouldn't leave the lights on all day, or else he'll end up paying more for electricity. Then, he goes on to share a few more tips on saving money, and Duke is really impressed by how much Daniel knows about. They head into the studio, and Duke hits play on one of his new songs he's been working on. Daniel listens and says it sounds really good. Duke looks away, feeling shy, and says it's not finished yet, and he still needs to fine-tune the audio. As they prepare for the performance, Duke tells Daniel he can start with the melody because he doesn't want to kick things off himself. His strong voice might overshadow Daniel's part. Daniel begins to sing the melody, and Duke praises his voice, saying it sounds really genuine, even if his singing is just slightly above average compared to his looks. Duke reminds Daniel not to sing too hard or loud, or he might hurt his vocal cords and won't be able to sing properly until after the festival. They take a stroll outside, and Daniel starts to complain about his throat feeling sore. Duke warns him not to sing for the rest of the day. Suddenly, they hear Duke's name being called. It's his grandmother, selling food at her usual stall despite being sick. She asks if Duke and his friend want something to eat, thinking they must be hungry. Duke remembers the time Zach and his friends devoured everything at the stall and left a huge mess. Daniel says they just ate, but he appreciates her kindness, even though she has her business to run. As night falls, we see the real Daniel, eager to practice his singing again now that he's in a different body and his vocal cords are well rested. He opens his mouth, and surprisingly, his vocal cords feel perfectly fine. This means he can practice singing all day and night. He begins to work on the melody from Duke's song. The attractive girl who bought him a drink earlier walks in. She praises his voice, telling him that he has a beautiful singing talent. After that, she grabs a box of energy drinks and gets one for Daniel too. She encourages him to keep going and then heads out. Daniel thinks to himself that she might be the most beautiful girl he has ever seen. He glances over at the entrance and sees Duke and Jiho coming in. Jiho quickly apologizes for the last time when he tried to take a charger and ended up in a fight with Daniel. Daniel reassures him that it's all good since he was forced into that situation. They all sit outside, sipping their drinks, and start sharing their experiences with bullying, discussing the names they were called and the things they endured. Daniel feels a sense of relief being able to talk about these issues and is glad to know he's not alone in facing such challenges. Jiho pulls out a cigarette and starts smoking, thinking that it makes him look the coolest of the three. The conversation shifts to Zach, who used to be a major bully but has changed his ways. They also talk about another Daniel from school, who is nice enough to let them eat with him. Duke expresses his gratitude towards Daniel, calling him really kind. Vasco suddenly grabs Jiho's cigarette and questions if they're being honest. They explain to Vasco that Daniel invited them to join him for a meal, that he doesn't flaunt his strength, and that he had to fight Zach once in the hallway. Vasco ponders deeply for a moment, then turns to Daniel, telling him he's not weak. He offers to help Daniel get stronger if he's interested. After saying this, Vasco walks away. He heads back to the store to grab some milk and a burn balm, since the cigarette he took from Jiho burned his fingers. Back at Duke's house, Duke is amazed by Daniel's incredible progress. He asks Daniel how he became so skilled and if he was just hiding his abilities during their first practice. Daniel blushes and looks away, saying he just practiced a lot. Finally, the day of the festival has arrived. We open with a great big blue sky. Tensions are low and vibes are high. People turn around and we can see a delivery truck driving in, carrying DJ Rufy, a senior from Practical Music. The driver is also a DJ who graduated last year. They park the car and start getting ready to perform. DJ Woofy puts his arm in the air and gets ready to lay down some sick beats. This is the true essence of the J-High Festival. We can see some food on display and a woman handing out flyers. J-High was famous for their festival, so everyone tries to, but on their best performance as possible. There was a range of ideas and stalls, snack booths, cafes, etc. The fashion department's show was a charity date auction, and they needed one more male participant, so it had to be either Daniel or Zach. They both said that they aren't interested. Zach tries to think of ways he can dodge the responsibility, so we come back to the present and can see him dodging punches. He is running a booth, where if you are able to hit him in a minute, you can double your money. So in the end, Daniel was chosen as the participant for the charity date auction. No one is forced to make money from your booth or do a performance though. For the beauty department, we can see Eli doing free haircuts as he makes a girl blush, telling her that she would look gorgeous with a little trim. The haircut is revealed, and the girl is blinded by love to see that he botched the haircut completely. The representative of the beauty department tells Eli that his haircuts still suck and asks him how he is so painfully bad at using scissors. We can see a line forming for Eli to cut their hair. The beauty department is declared a massive success for this year. We switch over to the baking department and can see that they are selling fresh bread. However, they don't have many customers. The baking department took a loss due to a lack in sales this year. The architecture department is running an arm wrestling stall. Someone mentions that Vasco has won 10 arm wrestles in a row. Vasco looks at the queue of big muscular guys and starts to cry. Jace tries to recover Vasco's mood by telling him they can do something different, something they can do with girls. He instantly lightens up again. Instead of doing arm wrestling, they switch their strategy and instead do a water balloon game, where people throw water at their faces. Unfortunately, Vasco pulls his serious face and scares away the customer. After switching their strategy, they made no money, putting them in a loss for the day. The next event is the fashion show. We can see some really weird costumes on display. One of the reasons the fashion show is so well known is because the clothes the models who walk the runway wear are ridiculous and make no sense. One of the models confronts the stylist and asks why he has been made to wear a shark head while being shirtless. The fashion show concludes, and it is now time for the charity date auction, and last year's winner is the MC. He welcomes everyone and thanks them all for coming. The first participant comes up and is sold for $65. The next one is someone from the baking department. He gets sold for $80. For Eli Jiang, someone bids $50, then $100, and then $500, beating last year's record, which hurts the MC's pride a little. Apparently, all the girls from the beauty department pooled their money together to buy Eli Jiang. Vasco is seen trying to leave, but gets dragged back onto stage. People start to compliment his figure, but when he gets nervous, he pulls a face that looks very intimidating and scary. This results in not a single person bidding for Vasco. One of Vinjin's friends is put on display, and since no one wants him, he is bought for a measly 50 cents. And finally, the last participant is put on stage. Daniel. The girls go wild, all eager to get a chance to bid on him for themselves. The main character can't help but chuckle to himself. He realized the moment he spotted Daniel that he would be the star of this year's event. Just then, a girl from Chanel private school named Lala jumps into the mix. She thinks to herself that J-High always has the hottest guys. The MC turns to Daniel and mentions that he was the one who fetched the highest bid last year, and it was Lala who won him. The year before that, DJ Rufy was also bought by Lala. The MC warns Daniel that if Lala wins again, he better run for it. He'll have to plan all the date activities, write her love letters, carry her bag out of the restroom, and shop with her until the mall closes. The MC makes it clear, if Lala wins, Daniel is in big trouble. Meanwhile, Jay, who has been eavesdropping, rushes over to the staff stall, only to find out that guys can't bid in the auction. Zoe slams her hand on the table and boldly declares 300. She thinks to herself that she's been saving for this moment. I have to go on this date with Daniel, she tells herself. Lala confidently raises her arm and bids $1,000, shocking everyone and completely overshadowing Zoe's offer. 2 years ago, DJ Poofy was purchased for $1,000. Now, as he recalls that day with Lala, a chill runs down his spine. Daniel starts to feel overwhelmed with stress. Out of nowhere, a voice from the back of the crowd yells, $2,000! It's the girl from the convenience store, accompanied by a man behind her. Daniel is left speechless, wondering if she even goes to high school based on her outfit. Lala, feeling competitive, hesitantly raises her hand and bids $2,500. The convenience store girl quickly counters, doubling the bid to $5,000. Lala stares in disbelief and in a fit of frustration tosses her bag into the air, claiming it's worth $7,000 and asking if she can use it to bid. However, the staff quickly informs her that only cash is accepted for bids. Going once, going twice, sold for $5,000. We see Daniel and the convenience store girl standing awkwardly in the parking lot. He thanks her for outbidding the other girl and for choosing him. The woman spins around and questions him about the other girl, wondering if he thought there was anything wrong with her. She tells Daniel that she didn't bid on him because she was genuinely interested in dating him. Don't look down on others just because you're good looking, she advises. Daniel feels a wave of guilt wash over him. He realizes he's been treating people the same way he was treated in his original body. As the woman gets into her car and starts to drive away, Daniel feels the urge to apologize for his harsh words. But just as he reaches out, the mysterious man seizes his hand. Daniel manages to break free from the man's grip, surprising both the woman and the man, as it's the first time anyone has done that. Suddenly, the man goes for a high kick, and Daniel instinctively raises his arm to block it. But at the last moment, he shifts his leg and he gets hit right on the side of his head. The scene shifts, revealing Vasco wandering around with a few juice boxes. Glasses expresses his desire to let Daniel go, but he feels unable to do so. He questions whether Daniel has good eyesight or if he has just become slower. Glasses praises Daniel for being strong and quick, acknowledging his talent. The mysterious figure is identified as Gun. The woman tries to convince Gun not to engage in a fight with Daniel, but he responds that he was instructed to eliminate anyone who gets too close to her. At that moment, Vasco enters the scene, asking what they think they are doing. Gun inquires about Vasco's identity, wondering if he is a friend of Daniel's. "Yeah, I'm his friend," Vasco replies, leaving Daniel surprised by this revelation. Vasco sets down his juice box and warns Gun that if he messes with Daniel, he'll have to deal with him too. Seizing the moment, Gunn strikes Vasco while warming up his shoulder, landing a punch right in his face. Vasco, unfazed, calmly tells Gunn to remove his glasses since he can't hit anyone wearing them. Gunn takes off his glasses, remarking that J-High has some intriguing students. Vasco raises his arms, preparing to fight Gunn. The woman clings to Gunn's arm, shouting that Daniel has never harmed her. She threatens him, stating that if he fights, their boss will send him back to where he came from. Gunn then apologizes to Daniel, explaining that he hasn't fought in a while and was just a bit too aggressive. The woman informs Daniel that the money will be given to a charity and that it doesn't really belong to her. As she leaves, she apologizes for Gunn's kick. As the car drives out of their eyesight, Vasco collapses to the ground, and Daniel panics, worried that he might have passed out. Vasco then asks Daniel about the guy with the glasses, but Daniel admits he doesn't know who he is either. Vasco claims that if he had to fight Daniel again, he could win, but there's no way he could take on the guy in glasses and come out on top. Feeling ashamed, he says he still feels too weak. Daniel sits down and expresses his gratitude to Vasco for saving him. Vasco offers him a juice box and they both sit in silence together for a while. Vasco confesses that he found the juice on the street, but Daniel appreciates that Vasco thought to grab two so they could both enjoy one. He thanks Vasco while taking a juice box, saying he's really thirsty. Vasco blushes a bit at Daniel's comment. As they admire the sunset, Daniel realizes that Vasco is his first real friend. The scene shifts to the festival, showcasing the lively singing and dancing performances. Vin Jin and his buddy just wrapped up their song, and you can see the sweat dripping down their faces. The audience is going crazy, and everyone believes that this duo has definitely secured first place. The CEO of the talent agency is spotted at the J-High Festival, while a staff member rushes to get the next contestant ready. Duke is dressed in his rap gear, complete with a chain and gold rings, but something feels off. Where's Daniel? Duke worries that if Daniel doesn't show up soon, he'll have to go on stage alone. Just when Duke starts to lose hope, Daniel arrives right on time, wearing a suit, tie, and a backwards cap. Daniel begins to doubt himself, fearing he might embarrass himself if he messes up or has a voice crack. But there's no turning back now. They step forward and take a look at the crowd they're about to perform for. Daniel's heart races like it's about to burst. He expresses his gratitude to Jay for picking out his outfit. The scene shifts to Jay, who beams as he overhears people complimenting Daniel's look. The MC hands Daniel the microphone and asks if he has a girlfriend. With a shaky voice, Daniel replies no. The MC glances at the crowd and tells Daniel that with all the fans cheering, he could easily pick anyone he likes. Daniel starts to wonder why the MC isn't directing any questions at Duke. The MC steps back, allowing the duo to take the spotlight. Duke announces that their next song is called Beautiful Day. As the backing track begins, Daniel's mind goes completely blank. When he finally manages to make a sound, it's off-key, making Duke anxious about missing his cue. Vin Jin chuckles to himself, knowing they would sound awful. The audience's reaction is frosty, which only heightens Daniel's anxiety. But then Duke raises his arm and starts rapping, instantly captivating everyone. Daniel is taken aback by Duke's confidence in front of the crowd. Duke winks at him, signaling that he can handle this. Daniel recalls their practice sessions at Duke's house, where Duke advised him to picture performing for someone special whenever he felt nervous, since everyone has that one person who means a lot to them. When Daniel pictures the audience as just one important person, it helps calm his nerves. He wonders who that person might be, and his mom immediately comes to mind. As soon as he thinks of her, Daniel opens his mouth to sing. For the second time during the song, the crowd is stunned by the incredible sound coming from the microphone. Duke watches Daniel and reflects on how much he has grown since their first practice together. The bullies recall all the times they picked on Duke and start to feel guilty about it. The CEO of the agency remembers how he dismissed Duke before even giving him a chance to showcase his rap skills. Vin Jin thinks back to all the moments he teased Duke, believing he was a bad rapper, but now he realizes he has some real competition. As the song wraps up, the audience erupts with excitement. Everyone starts praising Duke's rapping abilities, especially since they had always thought he was awful, thanks to Vin Jin's bullying. It's clear that Duke and Daniel's performance blew Vin Jin and his friend out of the water. The CEO steps onto the stage, ready to hand over a card with his direct number, but ends up giving it to Daniel instead of Duke. Duke stays silent. Daniel then asks if he can also give a card to Duke, but the CEO responds that he doubts Duke will ever make it big because of the way he looks. He apologizes to Duke, claiming it's just business and nothing personal. After witnessing the CEO's treatment of Duke, Daniel decides not to sign with the OK Talent Agency. A few days after the festival, a video of their performance goes viral, racking up an impressive 23,000 views and 8,000 comments. The downside? Duke doesn't appear in a single frame of the video. We see him sitting alone on a bus, two girls nearby looking at him with disdain. Once again, he's scribbling down song lyrics, determined to channel his emotions into music. Zoe arrives home and calls out for her mom. She asks her where her laundry is. Zoe's mom replies that she hasn't seen it. Zoe thinks it's odd that her clothes seem to be disappearing all of a sudden. Meanwhile, we see Gangnam crouched at the end of the street, sniffing her underwear. He looks up with a creepy grin, imagining all the things he and his wife will do when they finally meet. Next, we shift to the convenience store, where Daniel is lost in thought about his last conversation with Yui. He can't believe they are the same person. Gangnam walks into the store, staring at his phone, and Daniel glances over to see Zoe's stream on Paprika TV. When he looks up, he sees Gangnam staring down at him with a fierce look. Daniel quickly checks the whiskey that Gangnam usually buys, but this time, there's something else that needs to be scanned. I wonder what it could be. Finally, we see Zoe taking out the trash while chatting on the phone. She shares about her streaming success and how she's gaining tons of new followers, hinting that she could soon be one of the top creators on Paprika TV. After putting her phone down, Zoe feels a wave of fear wash over her, since there's no one around to take her mind off the creepy atmosphere of the alley. Suddenly, a voice from the shadows calls out to her. It's Gangnam, asking for directions. Zoe jumps in surprise and tries to brush him off, saying she doesn't really know the area. Gangnam steps closer, but just as he's about to approach her, Daniel jumps in front of Zoe to protect her. Zoe is confused about how this guy knows her name. Daniel yells that Gangnam has a knife. Gangnam swings the blade at Daniel, who feels the urge to run and hide, but he knows he has to protect Zoe. The knife gets dangerously close to his head. Just as he's about to get hit, he remembers Zach's fight with Yui's boyfriend. Zach had managed to block the guy's punches and then landed a hit right on the side of his face. Daniel quickly strikes Gangnam's wrist, making him drop the knife. Now that Gangnam is unarmed, he starts to back away. Daniel twists his hips and bends his arm, barely missing Gangnam. He realizes he can't pull off the same move Zach did in his small body, so he decides to shield Zoe. Gangnam yells at Daniel, claiming that Zoe is meant to be with him. He starts throwing punches at Daniel, trying to reach Zoe. Finally, she remembers where she's seen Daniel before, when he went to the bar to pick up Big Daniel. Gangnam keeps trying to get through to her, but Daniel stands firm. Frustrated, Gangnam goes to grab the knife again, but before he can do any more harm, a barbell flies right at him. Vasco appears, panting and sweating. Gangnam collapses to the floor in pain, threatening to kill Vasco for ruining his perfect face. Vasco replies that he witnessed everything, and now he's his opponent now. Before Gangnam approached Zoe, we see a flashback of little Daniel peeking around a corner. He spots Gangnam watching Zoe's broadcast while holding a knife, so he quickly dials 911. Daniel tells the operator that someone is out on the street with a knife. They ask if he feels threatened, and he replies no. They then question if the person is drunk, and Daniel admits he isn't sure. The operator asks him to speak louder, but Daniel explains he's trying to stay hidden. They want to know if it's a razor or a kitchen knife. The dispatcher informs him that they've sent an officer to check it out, but Daniel worries they won't get there in time. He thinks about who else he could call nearby. He remembers Vasco talking to him when he was at the convenience store with Jiho and Duke, telling him to reach out if he ever needed help. Nervously, Daniel calls Vasco, who answers while working out. Daniel considers hanging up, but blurts out that there's someone with a knife. Vasco lets the weights fall from his hands, grabs his phone, and asks Daniel where he is. Just as Daniel is about to reply, Gangnam starts walking towards Zoe. Daniel drops the phone and yells at Zoe to be careful. Vasco shouts into the phone, trying to find out where Daniel is, but nobody can hear him. Now we're back in the present, and Vasco is complaining to Daniel about how he had to search all over town for them. Gangnam stands up, holding a knife, and yells at Vasco about what he's done to his beautiful face, claiming he won't lose this time. He boasts about sending Zoe a ton of balloons and insists it's not his fault he looks the way he does. He argues that he hasn't done anything wrong and is just playing the hand he was dealt. Vasco grabs Gangnam's hand and goes for his throat. He lifts Gangnam off the ground and tells him that using a knife against someone who isn't armed is unfair. Vasco squeezes Gangnam's wrist until the knife falls from his hand. He warns Gangnam to get ready as he prepares to throw a punch, but suddenly, a faint voice calls out from the ground. Gangnam's father suddenly appears from the shadows, pleading with Vasco to show mercy for his son. He bows his head to the ground, begging Vasco not to harm Gangnam. Vasco lets him go, and his father starts crawling on his knees, asking Vasco to forgive his only child. Gangnam yells at his dad, telling him to leave and insisting that he can take care of himself. Daniel watches Gangnam and remembers how he used to shout at his mom too. He thinks that Gangnam reminds him of himself. Gangnam then starts yelling at Vasco, saying that people treated him like he was worthless and judged him because of his looks. They disrespected him and discriminated against him. It's not fair, he screams in anger and frustration. The rich keep getting richer while the poor just get poorer. He tells Vasco that girls only care about looks and money, and that Vasco will never understand what it's like to be looked down upon because he's big and strong. Vasco cuts in, saying that it's not right to blame others for his problems. He asks Gangnam if he has ever tried to change things, but Gangnam replies that there's nothing he can do. Trying to change himself feels pointless, and he can't escape his situation. Vasco stares directly at Gangnam and tells him that he used to be just like him, but he overcame everything life had thrown at him. If he can, so can everyone else. Those words hit Daniel hard, almost like Vasco was talking straight to him instead of Gangnam. Soon after, the police show up and arrest Gangnam for trying to commit murder. Once the officers leave, people start coming out of their homes to see what all the noise was about. Vasco smiles at Daniel and thanks him for reaching out. Zoe runs over and gives Daniel a huge hug, asking if he's hurt at all. She praises his courage, and Vasco watches them with a tear rolling down his cheek. Meanwhile, a group of people is gathered outside the convenience store, waiting for Daniel to finish his bathroom break. The next day, Big Daniel reflects on Vasco's words about making a change in their lives. Zoe approaches him and he checks in on her, mentioning he saw on the news that she was attacked by a man with a knife. Zoe replies that she's feeling much better now and has decided to stop streaming. She even returned all her earnings to Gangnam's father. Then she asks Big Daniel if he knows where little Daniel lives. Daniel asks her why she's curious about that, and she smacks her forehead, asking herself why she is asking silly questions like that. Daniel thinks she's still feeling the effects of last night and forgets her question. Yui enters the classroom with bruises all over her face. Some students start whispering about her injuries and how she got them. Daniel says hi to Yui. Zach thinks to himself that he can't believe she's still flirting with Daniel, even in her current state. She takes out a handkerchief and says it's a gift, but it turns out she's giving it to Zach. His eyes go wide, hoping Mira didn't hear her. Yui thanks Zach for everything that happened last night and mentions that she broke up with her boyfriend. Zach leans in and whispers to Yui that she shouldn't talk about last night in front of Mira, or else she'll misunderstand and confront him. Meanwhile, we see viewers commenting on Duke's rapping skills, and the viewer count is at 52. Duke is really excited because he finally found people who enjoy his music and don't make fun of him for how he looks. Meanwhile, Mira and Zach are walking home from school, but they're in the middle of an argument. Zach insists to Mira that there's nothing going on between him and Yui, claiming it's all a big misunderstanding. Just then, the boyfriend from yesterday shows up and tells Zach he's been waiting for him. Mira questions Zach about whether he's been fighting again, and even though he tries to deny it, she cuts him off and says she's leaving. Zach drops to his knees. The older guys from before return, and the big guy asks Zach if he sent his girl away so she wouldn't have to watch him get beaten up. They notice Zach is crying, and they all start laughing. But Zach looks at them with a devilish smile, tears streaming down his face, and says he has nothing to lose now. He cracks his knuckles and warns everyone that he's not in the mood today. He starts swinging his fists wildly in the air, blaming everyone for Mira leaving him. In the next scene, we see Mr. Beanie and Mr. Necklace on the ground, agreeing to never mess with Zach again. Zach is sitting in class with a little smile on his face. He turns to one of his friends and asks if they can help him find a specific pair of shoes. He knows his friend is always checking Craigslist, so if anyone can find what he wants, it's him. Even though Zach looks happy, Namsu feels like Zach is bossing him around. After school, Namsu starts looking through all the listings, but everything is way more expensive than what Zach wanted. It turns out a famous pop star has been wearing those shoes, which is why the prices shot up. We see a series of clips of Namsu reaching out to different sellers, but he gets rejected every time. One seller asks if it's okay that the shoes are completely ripped, while another thinks Namsu is joking. Finally, he finds a seller willing to sell the shoes for $300. They suggest sending the shoes by courier, but Namsu insists on meeting in person. The last time he got something delivered, it was just a brick and a note that said, "Haha." Plus, the money he has is actually Zach's, so if he gets scammed, Zach will never let him live it down. He asks the seller if they can meet face to face, but they want to chat on Messenger instead, saying that's their preference. Namsu added the seller as a friend and noticed her profile picture was of a really pretty girl. He felt excited and a little shy about meeting her in person. The next day, he told Zach that he found a seller and was going to meet her. Zach said he didn't need to go that far, but Namsu insisted, telling Zach that when he goes in person, he can tell if products were fake just by looking at them. Zach thanks Namsu for picking up the shoes for him. After school, Namsu was all dressed up in the latest fashion, eagerly waiting to meet the seller. He knew girls liked guys who looked strong, so he put on shoulder pads, hip pads, and special shoes to make himself look taller. He felt like a superhero, thinking everyone was admiring him and calling him the most handsome guy around. When the seller arrived, she asked if he was the buyer looking for the shoes, but before he could respond, two guys hold him down and tell him to look straight ahead and smile like they're buddies, so no one gets suspicious. Namsu is pressed against a wall. The group that robbed him is busy counting the cash. The girl explains that Namsu wasn't actually chatting with her on the phone. The guy counting the money was just using her picture as his profile. He says it's always the losers who fall for this kind of trick. The big guy warns Namsu that they have his address, name, school, and phone number. If he tries to tell the police, they'll know exactly where to find him and beat him up. Namsu feels looks down, thinking about how he'll tell Zach that he got scammed. As the gang gets ready to leave, Namsu pleads with them to give him back his money, saying the $300 belongs to a professional boxer. The leader looks at Namsu and asks if he really thinks he looks that easy to mess with. He steps closer, saying he'll show Namsu just how scary he can be. Namsu is covered in bandages and tells Zach that he got tricked out of his $300, which he was going to use for shoes. He worries that Zach might hit him again and wonders if he'll have to pay him back. Zach, feeling frustrated, thinks he should have gone with Namsu. "You must have been really scared. It's my fault," Zach says. Namsu starts to cry, saying he didn't do anything wrong and that it was his mistake for trusting the profile picture and going alone. Yui joins in and asks what's going on. Zach explains everything, and Yui asks if they still have the scammer's contact. Namsu says he has their info on his phone and shows the profile picture. Everyone is shocked to see it's a girl, but Namsu explains he thought it was a girl too, until he got there and found other guys with her who robbed him. Yui mentions that their fake phone is valuable, so they plan to use it until the police catch on. They look up the profile on Craigslist and find all the fake stuff being sold. Zach suggests that they should use a different phone and pretend to be interested in buying something. He believes that if they think they're dealing with someone easy to fool, like Namsu, they will definitely show up. Namsu feels hurt by this. Zoe tells Zach he should change his profile picture to someone who looks easy to trick. They ask Jiho if he can look their way for a picture. Once they snap the photo, it turns out great. Jiho thinks to himself that he doesn't really understand what's going on, but he feels really uncomfortable and unpleasant about it. Zach sends them a message, and they agree to meet. Daniel asks Yui how she knows so much about this stuff, and she explains that her ex-boyfriend used to do similar things, so she learned a lot about scamming. The scene shifts to the group, who are back to their usual tricks. Their target is a guy with a baby face, but when they arrive, they discover he's actually a sumo wrestler, and he brought some friends. The gang leader tells them he doesn't have the laptop they want to buy. The sumo wrestler warns them that they're bad people and that they've picked the wrong people to mess with. They prepare for a fight. In a quick move, the leader kicks one of the sumo wrestlers in the head, knocking him out cold. He reveals that he has a black belt in Taekwondo and that the ones who have gotten involved with the wrong crowd are actually them. The leader's friend crashes into the other sumo wrestler. He pushes his hands back, and the sumo wrestler leader claims that they both have incredible strength. The leader then asks the last wrestler if he finally sees the difference in their power. The wrestler charges at the leader. In the next scene, we see him counting money while sitting on top of the sumo wrestler, who is face down on the ground. The girl looks down at the unconscious sumo wrestler and feels scared about leaving the gang because she doesn't want to end up like him. She starts to cry quietly, wishing someone would rescue her from this nightmare. Duke is sitting in front of a camera, getting ready to live stream on a site called Paprika TV. Daniel dropped by Duke's place because he heard Duke was going to host a music show. They set everything up for the stream and waited for viewers to join. A few people tuned in, but all they got were mean comments about their appearance, with some calling them pigs. During the entire stream, they only managed to collect 10 balloons, which are a form of currency that viewers can donate to streamers, later redeemable for real cash. Each balloon is worth 10 cents, but Paprika takes a hefty 40% cut when you cash out. Duke claims he's not really in it for the money, but he mentions that one of Paprika's top streamer is from their high school, Yui. A few days later, we see Yui chatting with Daniel about his performance at the festival and how well he did. Suddenly, Yui starts showering Daniel with gifts, including a designer wallet. Daniel recognizes it as the same pattern as his mom's wedding bag, which she only uses for special occasions. Feeling uncomfortable about receiving such an expensive gift, Daniel politely turns it down and wonders why Yui is being so generous all of a sudden. He starts to understand that she might actually like him, which feels strange for Daniel. He also realizes that this could be the first time he has a crush too. As the school day wraps up, Zoe approaches her friends to see if they want to go to karaoke. Two of the girls agree, but as soon as Yui mentions wanting to go shopping, the other two quickly change their minds and say they'd rather shop than sing. Zoe then pulls out a pouch and asks her friends if it looks cute and if she should buy it. Yui bluntly says it's kind of ugly and doesn't suit Zoe at all. The next day, the three girls are chatting and Zoe takes a closer look, only to see that Yui is carrying the very pouch she called ugly. Zoe tries to join in on their conversation, but they completely ignore her and keep talking. When Daniel walks into the room, the three girls suddenly perk up. Yui asks Daniel if he likes the pouch she bought, and he replies that it's nice. In that moment, Zoe realizes what's really going on and why her friends are acting distant. It's all to impress Daniel. Zach's friend, Do, pulls out a massive pack of cigarettes. Curious, Zach asks how Do can afford all his stuff and tells him that stealing is wrong. Do explains that he started streaming on Paprika to make some extra cash. He then invites Zach and the others to check out his broadcast. Jump scare warning ahead. In the next panel, we see Do shirtless, with hairy armpits and an egg cracked on his head. He spins around, thanking a viewer for sending him 100 balloons. Zach and the others are left in shock at the bizarre scene. Do lights a cigarette and counts his earnings from the stream, which total 400 balloons. He then hops onto Paprika to see if any cute girls are live streaming. To his surprise, he spots a familiar face. Zoe, who is streaming on Paprika now. She receives tons of donations and ends up with a whopping 10,000 balloons just for chatting with her viewers. Zoe wraps up her stream, expressing her gratitude to everyone who tuned in and contributed. She wonders if Daniel will start spending time with her now that she's making good money. The scene shifts to Yui, who is playfully making cute gestures at the camera to attract donations. The donations keep pouring in, and the chat is overflowing with balloon emojis. After a while, Yui finishes her stream and lights up a cigarette, grumbling about how exhausted she feels. Suddenly, her boyfriend pops out from behind a box, complaining that her stream went on for too long. He questions whether they need to keep their relationship a secret, and Yui apologizes, explaining that if her viewers found out she had a boyfriend, they might not donate as many balloons, which would mean less money for nice things. She then pulls out a wallet that Daniel had politely turned down and hands it to her boyfriend, saying she bought it just for him. The architecture department reflects on their first loves, with Jace encouraging Woong to stay positive, assuring him that he will move on soon. Vasco shares his own experience, recalling how he was really hung up on his first crush, even bringing her milk every day. Vasco explains that your first love can cloud your judgment, and when the girl you like smiles at you, it changes everything in your brain. The scene shifts to Yui and Daniel, who are hanging out as usual. Daniel asks Yui her opinion on overweight people, and she responds that she sees everyone as just people, so it doesn't bother her. He thinks to himself that Yui stands out from other girls. Yui then glares at Zoe. Meanwhile, Duke has been streaming for a while, but struggles to attract viewers due to his appearance. Jiho suggests inviting Daniel to join the stream since his presence usually boosts Duke's viewership significantly. However, Duke insists he doesn't want to rely on Daniel anymore. He wants to succeed on his own. Back with Yui, she frowns as she checks the leaderboards, noticing Zoe's profile gaining popularity. She thinks to herself that Zoe is catching up and even copying her catchphrases. Determined, Yui starts her own stream, trying to be even cuter. Balloons keep pouring in, and Yui reflects that attractive girls always seem to have an advantage. If you're good-looking, money just comes your way. Duke is only streaming to 2 viewers, and neither of them are very nice. Just then, Daniel enters and asks what he's up to. He notices Duke is live and suggests they perform the festival song together. Duke agrees, saying, "Sure, come join me." Meanwhile, 3 people browsing Paprika stumble upon Duke's stream. The moment they see Daniel, they become instantly interested and start sending balloons. We then cut to a phone call between 2 mysterious individuals, with one urging the other to log on to Paprika TV right away. In the next scene, Lala discovers Duke's broadcast featuring Daniel. She feels it's fate that she found him again. To grab Daniel's attention, she sends an impressive 1,000 balloons, but soon after, another viewer starts sending even more. Determined not to be outdone, she decides to send 3,000 balloons. She laughs to herself, confident she can win this gifting war thanks to her generous monthly allowance. As night falls, we see Lala sitting in her chair, gazing up. She spent all her allowance and still came up short. Meanwhile, Jay is in his room, grinning at his laptop. The secret gifter from the stream has finally been uncovered. Duke and Daniel wrap up the stream, and their total earnings hit $2,000. They can't believe their eyes at the sight of that much cash. Next, we see Daniel at his cashier job. He scans a beer bottle, the customer pays, and leaves. He reflects on the stream and realizes it made as much as his entire monthly paycheck from working the night shift. Daniel starts to think about what to do with the $1,000 he earned from the stream. He decides he should buy a gift for his mom first, and then he can use the rest for Yui. Just as he's about to figure out what to get her, Yui walks into the convenience store with a guy. Daniel tells himself that the guy must be her brother, but just then, Yui grabs a box of balloons that are definitely not for kids. Daniel is puzzled about why she would buy something so mature with family around. Their eyes lock, and Yui asks him what he's staring at, saying he's annoying her. In the end, they choose not to buy the balloons. But as they leave, the so-called brother tells Daniel to keep his eyes to himself, knowing exactly what Daniel is thinking. Yui looks down at him with a judgmental glare and says he makes her sick. Daniel is taken aback. He's never seen Yui act like this before and wonders if the person in front of him is really her. A guy tells Daniel to speak up, but Daniel just stays quiet. He's lost in thoughts about the nice and sweet Yui he knows from school, but doubts start creeping in about whether she's really genuine. Yui then calls Daniel a pervert. The guy insists Daniel say something while getting ready to slap him, but somehow, Daniel manages to dodge it. Both the guy and Yui are shocked by Daniel's quick move. The guy is baffled, wondering how Daniel avoided his punch, which he had been perfecting for a decade. He tries again, claiming he was just going easy on Daniel the first time. But right before he can hit him, a voice calls out from the store entrance. It's Zach. The guy demands to know who Zach thinks he is, and Yui explains that Zach is in her class. Zach notices that the guy is Yui's boyfriend and thinks he looks like a thug. He realizes he shouted and starts to question why he feels the need to defend Daniel. Zach thinks back to the first time he fought Daniel and admits he's unsure about the whole situation, but he feels he can't let the man hit Daniel because he owes him something. The boyfriend calls Zach arrogant and complains that kids today lack respect. Zach spots the wallet in the man's hand, glances at Yui with a smirk, and calls her bold. He explains that the wallet was actually intended for a student in their class, but that student turned down the gift. Yui accuses Zach of lying and insists they should leave, but her boyfriend is curious and wants to hear more. Zach shares that there's a handsome guy in their class who Yui often buys gifts for, but he doesn't like expensive things, so he usually turns them down. He adds that even his pants were a gift meant for this pretty boy. The boyfriend then asks Zach how he knows all this, and Zach replies that he sits next to the pretty boy, so he's witnessed everything firsthand. Yui accuses Zach of fabricating nonsense and insists he's just telling tales. But before she can finish her rant, a fist suddenly connects with her face, knocking her down. While she's on the ground, he kicks her, and Zach calls the guy a worthless piece of trash for treating his girlfriend that way. The guy asks Zach if he really wants to fight, and he challenges him to come closer so he can take him out. As the tension rises, Daniel considers calling the police. Now, let's switch scenes. We see a broadcast where Zoe is making a heart shape with their fingers, thanking viewers for all the balloon donations. A user named Gangnam Landlord starts sending in a ton of balloons. Zoe steps up her performance, thinking that to outdo Yui, she needs even more balloons. She expresses her gratitude to Gangnam for the support. We then see a hand on a mouse, and the person quietly says it's a pleasure. Finally, we discover who Gangnam really is. He tells himself that he's down to his last $60. He figures he can only afford 1 cup of ramen for tomorrow, since he has to use the rest for balloons for Zoe. Zoe asks Gangnam what his job is, thinking he has a lot of cash. In truth, he's just a laborer, but he types in the chat that he runs several companies. He grumbles that he could have been a millionaire if it weren't for his dad being disabled. His father quietly mentions that he's hungry, but Gangnam doesn't pay attention. Then, someone in the stream starts donating more balloons, so Gangnam keeps splurging on balloons, and Zoe thanks him for the 2,000 balloons. Zoe strikes a cute pose and says she wants to marry him for all the money he's given her. Gangnam gazes at his monitor and replies, "I love you," back to her. The camera zooms out, revealing the messy state of his room, while his father weakly mutters that he's still hungry, but Gangnam continues to ignore him. We're back at the convenience store, and the boyfriend motions for Zach to come closer. He assures Zach that he won't hit him, but as soon as Zach steps forward, the boyfriend throws a quick right jab. Zach doesn't flinch, and the man takes a step back, feeling embarrassed at his attempt. The boyfriend taunts him, asking if he's scared, but before Zach can respond, he goes for another punch. This time, Zach doesn't even try to block. He just dodges it effortlessly and stares at the boyfriend with a blank expression. He turns to Yui and asks if she's close with Mira, to which she replies that they don't talk much. "Good," he says. "You didn't see me here today." The boyfriend then attempts his big move, but before he can even react, Zach lands a solid hit right on his face. He stands over the boyfriend and asks if getting punched hurts. The boyfriend gets back up and tries again, but Zach just keeps hitting him, again and again. Daniel watches in awe at Zach's speed, wondering how he managed to dodge those punches in his new body. He notices Zach using a different punching technique, shifting his weight from one leg to the other as his arm swings out from the side. He twists his arm at a right angle and slams it into the side of the boyfriend's face, sending him crashing to the ground. As the guy lies there, groaning in pain, Zach steps in and tells him he needs to learn to respect women. No matter how they behave, hitting a girl is never okay, Zach insists. He then turns to Yui and asks her not to mention anything to Mira about what just happened. As he walks out, he glances at Daniel and tells him he doesn't owe him anything. Meanwhile, Gangnam realizes he has spent all the money from his father's disability pension. He can't buy Zoe any more balloons now. Since she hasn't mentioned him in her stream lately, he starts to feel like she has betrayed his feelings for her, as he thought that they loved each other. He nervously chews on his nail, feeling a mix of anger and determination as he declares that he will never forgive her. To get back at her, he needs to track down her whereabouts. Just before Zoe ends her live stream, Gangnam captures a screenshot, noticing a sign with some words in the background. He begins to investigate every possible location one by one until he finally discovers the right spot. His cheeks flush as he imagines meeting his beloved Zoe and all the fun they could have together. After all, he reminds himself he is Zoe's husband. Meanwhile, we see Zoe walking home from school with her backpack slung over her shoulder. She thinks about how she'll soon surpass Yui in viewers if she keeps up with her broadcasts. She's excited to show Daniel all the money she's made from streaming on Paprika TV. In the next scene, Gangnam is lurking in an alley, wearing a truly frightening expression. Back at school, Zach stands up, ready to get his money back and take revenge for Namsu. His friends all rise together. Daniel thinks to himself that they look really strong as a team. They ask Daniel why he's still sitting. Zach tells everyone to chill out. He can handle it alone. Daniel quickly makes an excuse about packing his books. Inside, Daniel feels glad they see him as a solid part of the group. We see Jay sitting at the side of the classroom, eavesdropping on their wild conversation. Then, the scene changes to Vasco and Jace, who are busy watering some plants. Jace curiously asks Vasco what kind of seeds he planted. Vasco replies that he brought fruit seeds because they taste great. He promises to share the fruits with everyone once they're ready to eat. Jace, looking a bit worried, asks Vasco what type of fruits he planted. Vasco casually says, durian. Jace starts to cry a little, thinking that durians are tropical fruits and can't grow in Korea. He reminds himself not to let Vasco know that the fruits won't grow. Just then, Zach's gang and Daniel walks up to them. The two ask where everyone is going. Daniel fills them in on what's happening, and Vasco asks if Namsu got hurt badly. They tell him that Namsu had bandages all over his face the next day. After thinking for a moment, Vasco decides to join them. He tells Zach's gang to stay with Jace since they won't be needed, and too many people would be troublesome in the fight. They agree to stay behind. Jace watches the three guys head off to get Zach's money back and reassures himself that he doesn't need to worry about them because they're all strong. Finally, after school, we see the parking lot where Jay is getting ready to ride his motorcycle. I wonder where he's headed. The group is hanging out in a cafe, and we can hear some people whispering about Daniel's good looks. Then, we see three guys giving them really mean glares. Zach notices and glares back at them. They keep staring at each other until he finally speaks up. Zach grumbles about how there are too many arrogant guys around. Vasco asks Zach if he can have another milk, but Zach declines. Daniel starts to sweat a lot because of the intense looks from the three guys across the room. Zach suggests they should just deal with those guys, but Vasco tells him to chill out. Zach glances out the window and is surprised to see Yui, Mira, and Namsu outside. He jumps up and tells Vasco and Daniel he'll be right back. He calls out to them, and they all turn around. Zach asks Mira what she's doing there. Yui says that once Zach is done, they can go to karaoke. Mira mentions she needs to grab a book from the bookstore, but can join them for karaoke afterward. Zach blushes a bit and says he'd love to go. Just then, he hears a voice behind him. It's the three guys from the cafe who were giving him dirty looks. The middle guy tells Zach to follow him into an alley for a chat. Zach tries to act cool, claiming they've mistaken him for someone else, and that he's never met them before. The two guys with him are busy checking out the two girls by his side. Suddenly, the gang leader shows up with his not-so-pleased girlfriend. Namsu yells at Zach, telling him it's the guy who stole his money, but before Zach can even react, the leader punches him right in the face. Dazed and confused, Zach struggles as the leader throws another punch and then another. Zach ends up on the ground, defeated. The leader looks down at him and asks if he brought any friends to help him out. Just then, Mira throws a rock at the leader and yells at him, demanding to know why he had to hit Zach before he could even turn around. The leader thinks Mira is cute, and if his girlfriend Harry wasn't there, he could have had some fun with her. He then walks away, saying he has other things to do and warns them to never show their faces to him again. Mira starts yelling at the top of her lungs, urging anyone to report them, hoping someone will hear and call the police. Zach grabs Mira's ankle and tells her to be quiet. He feels bad for her having to witness him getting hurt. Zach then asks Namsu how long they have until they meet up with the gang for the fake product, and Namsu replies that they have 20 minutes. Zach watches the gang leave and quietly says under his breath that this isn't over yet. The gang is shown waiting for the shoe buyer to show up. When the clock hits 3 o'clock, Vasco, Daniel, and Zach come around the corner. The gang leader is surprised to see Zach again and asks if he brought friends this time. He tells his gang that Zach is the one he beat up before, and they all start laughing. Vasco steps forward, but Zach stops him, saying he wants to make the first move. He challenges the three gang members to come forward. The leader laughs at Zach, saying he finds him funny. He brags about being a national judo fighter and asks everyone how old they are, just as Zach starts to answer. Suddenly, one of the gang members tries to kick high, but Zach is quick this time and dodges it completely. He grabs the guy's face and slams him into the wall, knocking him out cold, which surprises everyone around. Zach then challenges the gang to send out their next fighter. He stumbles a bit, and Vasco notices that Zach is getting tired. Vasco asks for a turn, but Zach refuses, insisting he needs to finish what he started. Next up is the sumo wrestler, who thinks that if he can just catch Zach once, it will be game over for him. He tries to grab Zach, but misses. He tries again and misses. On the third try, he still misses. Zach keeps dodging all of the sumo wrestler's attacks. The wrestler thinks to himself that Zach is faster than their leader. Then, Zach slips between the wrestler's arms and delivers a solid punch right to his face. The bandana guy looks shocked as one by one, his gang members are taken down by just one person. Zach calls out for the leader now. Vasco notices that Zach isn't doing too well. His knees are shaking, and he can't keep his guard up for long. He thinks this might be the end for Zach, but he knows Zach won't just stand there forever. He's waiting for the perfect moment to hit the leader and take him down with one punch. Zach gets his hand ready, and Daniel sees what he's doing. He remembers his first real fight, getting his fists ready and aiming for the center of Zach's body. Suddenly, he throws a powerful punch to the solar plexus, sending the bandana man crashing to the ground. Zach looks down at the leader and says that being in the Nationals means nothing to him. He taunts the leader, asking how it feels to be on the ground in pain. Zach feels proud that he has finally regained his honor for Mira. Just then, a large group of men arrives, surprising everyone in Daniel's group. The leader warns them that they are in serious trouble since they are the most powerful group in town. Zach thinks to himself that he can't take on those guys alone, but Vasco raises his hand, telling him to take a break because he can handle it. Some members of the rival gang start to whisper among themselves, noticing Vasco's beard and tattoo, and they begin to think he's an adult who belongs to a real and dangerous gang. Vasco then turns to Daniel and tells him to watch his back. He explains that he needs to push through the crowd, so Daniel just has to stick close to him. Suddenly, a voice interrupts, telling Vasco that the boss should always come out last. It's the Bare Knuckles crew, here to back up Vasco for a fair fight. The leader recognizes their jacket emblem and realizes they are from the freshman monster gang from the east. It's the Burn Knuckles, the leader says, distressed. The leader feels more and more anxious as the bare knuckle fighters start to overpower his gang, taking control one by one. Vasco turns to Jace and asks how he knew he was there. Jace replies that their friendship allows them to communicate through telepathy. Vasco is touched by this, but the truth is, Jace just put a phone tracker on Vasco's device. Suddenly, a sumo wrestler sneaks up behind Vasco and threatens him, saying he'll crush his shoulders if he doesn't stop the fighting. Vasco quickly breaks free from the wrestler's grip and turns to face him. He places a hand on the wrestler's shoulder and starts to squeeze, causing the sumo wrestler to collapse in pain. The leader is shocked that their strongest fighter was taken down so easily. Just then, he gets a text saying that the rest of the gang has also been defeated. We switch scenes to Jay, who is smoking a cigarette. A flashback shows him cruising around until he overhears some students talking about a fight involving 3 guys. They encourage each other, saying that once they jump into the battle, victory is guaranteed. In the next scene, we see everyone sprawled out on the ground, while Jay smokes a cigarette, completely unharmed. We return to the main fight, where the leader charges straight at Daniel. He knows Zach and Vasco are tough, but since he hasn't seen Daniel in action yet, he thinks Daniel is just too scared to fight and weak. However, as he gets closer, he notices that everyone seems calm. Vasco is relaxed, and Zach is steady. The leader throws a left punch, but Daniel skillfully dodges it. He attempts the same combo he used against Gangnam, but now he's in his bigger form, giving him extra strength and reach. He throws a right punch to create some space, then steps in, bends his arm at a right angle, and delivers a powerful hook to the leader's stomach, not giving him a moment to recover. Daniel follows up with a straight punch, the same one he tried on the power machine before, but missed. A tooth flies out of the leader's mouth, and his gang falls silent after Daniel's hit. Zach thinks to himself that Daniel is definitely a boxing pro. Vasco is shocked as he recalls seeing that same shape with little Daniel, who used to carry big Daniel on his shoulders. He notices that their postures and habits are exactly alike, almost like they are the same person. This makes him curious about the link between the 2 Daniels. Harry rushes over to her boyfriend to check if he's all right. Vasco looks down at him and reminds him to take care of his girl because love shouldn't be taken for granted. As he watches them hold hands, Vasco can't help but shed a tear. With that moment, the gang fight comes to an end. Meanwhile, Gunn is sitting in a car, having been contacted by someone to step in if the fight got too out of hand for Daniel. He's surprised that the Bare Knuckles won the fight and is also impressed by Daniel's fighting skills. He now gets why he was told to keep an eye on him. The leader, his girlfriend, and the sumo wrestlers spot him and wave. He asks how they know him, and they explain that they saw him hanging out with some seniors in town a while ago. They say goodbye and go their separate ways. The next day at school, Zach asks Daniel if he's a boxer because he wants to have another fight, but this time with headgear on. Daniel says no, and Zach calls him mean. Jiho notices that Zach is wearing the new shoes and feels jealous that he got them for just $300. Yui approaches Zach and asks if he wants to study for the test together. Zach says no, because he never studies. Test? Daniel thinks. He suddenly realizes he hasn't even started studying for the upcoming tests.
At the beginning of the school day, Daniel walks in and is greeted by everyone. But something feels off. No one is wearing their school uniforms. I wonder why that would be. That's right, it's a day for a school outing. The panel shifts to show Daniel's outfit, and some students off to the side whisper to each other that he looks almost like a different species, because of how good-looking he is. The teachers gather all the students to discuss the rules and other important details. Daniel shares that he doesn't have the best memories from his middle school outing, but he's confident this time will be different thanks to his new and improved body. He hops onto one of the buses and heads straight for the seat next to the teacher, the spot he was always stuck in. The teacher glances at him, wondering if he lost a bet or something. Just then, Zach and his friends call him from the back of the bus, offering him the best seat available. Nervously, he walks over, stepping into a territory he never thought he could access before. The bus is starting rolling down the road, and we can see everyone engaged in a game. Mira is the last one to close her hands, which means she's about to get slapped. But it turns out Zach is the one who has to do it. The group encourages him to hit her hard since she's been winning all the rounds so far. Mira looks up at Zach, clearly nervous. Zach shuts his eyes, raises his hands, and slowly brings them down to tap Mira's hands gently. The others start yelling at Zach, accusing him of going easy on her just because she's a girl and calling him a pervert. Zach's face turns red, and Daniel chuckles a bit, saying that he's having so much fun. Meanwhile, the other bus, which is just carrying the architecture crew, is completely quiet. Jace thinks to himself that the vibe is really tense. Vasco, who couldn't sleep because he was too excited, now has dark circles under his eyes. To lighten things up, Jace decides to take off his shirt and suggests they have a dance party. Everyone joins in, taking off their shirts and chanting, "Nipple party, nipple party." The bus driver slumps into his seat, wondering to himself, why everyone at this school seems to be crazy. Vasco feels relieved that Jace has lightened the mood, but it couldn't have come at a worse moment. The beauty department bus pulls up right next to them, and we see girls getting cozy with Eli. At that moment, the entire architecture crew bursts into tears. All the buses stop for a bathroom break, and they discover a punching machine. Zach is the first to take a swing and sets a new record of 892. Not long after, Vinjin steps up and surpasses Zach with a score of 902. "Did I just break your record, Zach?" Vinjin taunts. "How can you call yourself a man?" But before he can finish, Zach smashes the hammer record that Vin just set. He fires back, asking Vin if he still considers himself a man after losing his record. The two get in each other's faces, trading insults, but they soon get distracted when Vasco and Daniel notice the punching bag and hammer. In the next scene, Vin Jin and Zach watch as Daniel tears apart the punching bag, while Vasco demolishes the hammer machine. The duo heads to the bathroom, but they're interrupted by another guy whose stream is so powerful it's spraying everywhere. They ask the two guys how old they are with really scary looks on their faces, and the guys on the other side of the bathroom say they're 17. Zach teases them by calling them little babies, even though he's 17 too. The guy with the strong stream insults Vin Jin, saying that he wears clothes that rappers wear, but he's a fake rapper because he's never heard of him. They part ways, but agree that if they cross paths again, it's going to end in a big fight. Everyone gets back on the bus, and soon they arrive at their destination. Daniel yawns as he steps onto the pavement, but before he can take it all in, someone yells for everyone to line up. It's the camp instructors. Some of the girls whisper about how good-looking one of the instructors is, but they complain about the other one and hope they don't end up in his group. The attractive instructor greets everyone and tells them that for safety reasons, they'll need to check their bags. The 3-night, 2-day school camp has officially started. The instructors begin searching through their bags and discover a bottle of alcohol hidden inside a Pringles can. They also uncover a pack of cigarettes stashed in a sealed bag of chips. As a consequence, the instructors make everyone who had contraband do exercises as punishment. The attractive part-time instructor instructs everyone to put their bags away in their rooms and prepare for some games. We see a group of students engaged in a game where they have to pass a ball from one side to the other, using only a piece of pipe that each person receives. Jace looks over at them and rolls his eyes at their enjoyment of such a childish game. Meanwhile, Vasco watches the ball game with excitement, his eyes shining. In the next scene, the construction department is playing the game with intense focus, as if their lives depend on it, and Vasco is thrilled. They move on to another game where they must form groups based on the number called out by the instructor. When the number 3 is announced, Jace and Blondie cling to Vasco, while the guy who previously tried to challenge him gets eliminated. Vasco glances over and sees Li being embraced by 4 girls, and he can't help but feel a tear roll down his cheek. The talent show is about to start, and the bakery team is impressively chopping up fruits and veggies at lightning speed, leaving everyone in awe of their skills. Following that, the beauty department takes the stage for a group dance, twirling their hair as they move. Once the dance wraps up, Duke takes over the stage, delivering powerful lyrics that send the crowd into a frenzy over his rapping talent. Vin Jin can't help but feel a pang of jealousy. Meanwhile, Daniel thinks to himself how happy he is to have joined the school outing. After the talent show, it's time for lights out, and everyone needs to settle down for the night. Du guides everyone to a room where the 4 girls from the beauty department are still hanging out. Daniel glances at the alcohol and wonders if he'll be pressured to drink again. Zach announces that he has plans with someone else and invites Daniel to join him. The 4 girls are left surprised that the only 2 guys they were excited to chat with have suddenly disappeared. Zach knocks on a door and Mira appears. We see Daniel, Zach, and Jiho sitting on the floor, captivated by the green light Mira created by placing her phone under a 7-Up bottle. Yui then asks if anyone wants to play Truth or Dare or have a drink. Mira tells Yui that she's a lightweight, so she'll probably be the first to get drunk. Zoe jumps in to comfort Mira, mentioning that both Daniel and Zach are also lightweights. Jiho has started to drink for the first time. As the night goes on, it's clear that after the drinking game, everyone is completely wasted except for Mira, who hasn't had a drop of alcohol. Later, the instructors burst into the rooms, but everyone in Mira's room has already left, so they don't get caught. The only ones who face trouble are those in Du's room. We switch scenes to see Daniel in his original body running. Since he has some time off work, he's decided to go for runs while his other body sleeps to build up his stamina. He jogs past a convenience store where the owner is looking at his computer. The screen shows photos from school camp, featuring attractive girls in revealing outfits. The owner notices that all these posts are from the same person and starts to wonder who's been secretly taking these pictures. Daniel wakes up to the start of the second day at camp, only to discover that while he was sleeping, some of his friends had drawn on his face. Unfortunately, Jiho had it worse. He's covered in doodles from head to toe. The first activity of the day is rafting, and we see the part-time instructor having a blast with Mira and another girl. They're clearly enjoying themselves, unlike the other raft, which has the shorter instructor. The group there looks frustrated and upset, wishing they could be with the more attractive instructor instead. The main instructor turns his gaze toward Mira, and she catches his eye, puzzled about why he's looking at her. As the day comes to a close, everyone receives candles to honor those who came before them and made this camp possible. Zach starts to reflect on his parents and feels emotional. The mood becomes sentimental, and some girls begin to cry as they think of their moms. Mira looks up and notices the short instructor stealing another glance at her. It's lights out again, but the construction department has other plans. They're caught up in a wild pillow fight, and Jace invites Vasco to join in. In the next scene, we see the traitor being tossed out the door headfirst. Meanwhile, Mira and Zach are out for a nighttime stroll, chatting away. Daniel and Jiho are tucked in bed, and Daniel starts reminiscing about all the fun they've had at camp, excited that he gets to go home tomorrow. Over with the instructors, they're indulging in all the confiscated alcohol, arguing that it would be a shame to waste it, so they decide to enjoy it instead. The main instructor thinks to himself that they're all unprofessional for drinking while on duty. He announces that he's heading to the warehouse. No one gets me, he thinks to himself. I need to find her. We can see one of Mira's revealing photos on his phone. When he opens the door, he finds the part-time instructor and Mira carrying boxes. The main instructor yells at him, questioning why he's with a student after hours. The part-time instructor casually explains that Mira was wandering alone, and as a consequence, she has to help him with the boxes. He shoots a disapproving look, and Mira starts to feel uneasy about the whole situation. The charming instructor turns his back and assures her that once she's done helping, he'll send her back to her room to rest. The instructor suddenly seizes the moment and tackles him to the ground, throwing punches at the part-timer's face. Mira feels a rush of fear and confusion, unsure of how to react. Just then, the main instructor's phone slips from his pocket, and she catches a glimpse of a photo of herself undressing. Her eyes widen in shock, and she pushes the short instructor away. Furious, she demands to know why the main instructor has such pictures of her. Meanwhile, the part-timer starts to stomp on his senior, while Mira urges him to report the main instructor to the police. He turns to her, grateful for her help. The scene shifts to Daniel, who has been pulled back into the store. His boss instructs him to hang up a poster, but as he does, something grabs his attention. His eyes widen, and his jaw drops when he sees the attractive instructor, who turns out to be a rapist. Back at the camp, the instructor shows his true nature. Mira's breathing quickens as she realizes she's in a perilous situation. She screams for help, but the part-timer explains that the warehouse is too far from the camp for anyone to hear her. He then punches her in the stomach to silence her. The not-so-handsome instructor prepares to undress Mira, asking her which piece of clothing he should start with. He begins to take off his pants while explaining how he landed this job. It turns out the camp administrator checks everyone's documents, so he had to swipe his brother's papers instead. He licks his lips and reassures himself that Mira really loves him, like, a lot. The short instructor manages to regain his senses and goes after the part-timer again. But just as he gets close, the part-timer kicks him in the leg, making him stumble. As he falls, he seizes his head and slams it into his knee. Mira watches in tears. "Let's keep going, I don't have much time," says the grapeyist, as he strides toward Mira. Meanwhile, we switch to Zach, who is asking Yui and Zoe where Mira is, and they both tell him she still hasn't come back. He reflects on how strange it was when they said goodnight. Mira mentioned she was heading straight to bed because she was tired, so she wouldn't be out drinking. Suddenly, Zoe receives a call from an unknown number and answers it with caution. When the caller introduces himself as Daniel from the convenience store, Zoe's expression brightens. He tells her he has something serious to discuss, so she needs to pay close attention. Daniel instructs her to wake up Daniel. Daniel is now awake in his big body. Without hesitation, he grabs the phone and calls the police to report their situation. But they inform him that since they are in the mountains, it will take about 30 minutes for help to arrive. Just then, a bag falls to the ground, revealing Zach with an expression unlike anything we've seen before. He heard everything. He quickly turns around and bolts toward the warehouse. Zoe approaches Daniel and tells him to lower his voice since people are trying to sleep. We're back at the warehouse, where we see Mira huddled in a corner with the main instructor lying unconscious on the floor. The Graper questions Mira about her tears, saying that now that there are no distractions, they can get back to their work. Mira begs him, promising not to report him to the police if he lets her go. This seems to trigger something in the Graper, and he forces Mira down onto the ground. He starts hitting her in the face, yelling that she was the one who flirted with him first, and that none of this is his fault. We see Mira's bloodied face as she looks up at the man looming over her. She tries to kick him off, but he doesn't move. The crazed man begins to undress her, but just before he can do anything worse, Zach bursts through the door, looking like he wants to take a man's life. He charges ahead without any hesitation. Graper notices this and gets ready to fight, realizing Zach has some skills, but Zach is too consumed by anger to notice the kick coming from below. As he starts to fall, the part-timer grabs his head and aims for another knee strike. Zach finds himself caught in the part-timer's hold and attempts to use dirty boxing by throwing a punch behind the head, but he gets pushed down before he can land a hit. Seizing the opportunity, Graper delivers a knee right to Zach's ribs, breaking a few in the process. He follows up with another knee to Zach's head. Meanwhile, Mira is stuck in the corner, helplessly watching her boyfriend get beaten up. We see Daniel and the gang searching for Zach, with Daniel worried that it might take a long time to find him since the camp is so big. Zach is still standing against Graper, but just barely. Both of his arms are broken, and he has several cracked ribs. Graper licks his lips and tells Zach that it's time to finish this. Just as he's about to deliver the final blow, the short instructor manages to grab his ankle, distracting him for just a moment. Zach sees his chance to get up close to the part-timer and completely wreck his face. The Graper thinks he can take the hit and counterattack, but Zack is one step ahead. He quickly readies his left fist and slams it into the Graper's face. Now that the guy is on the ground, Zack starts landing punch after punch. Just then, the police and the gang arrive, and Mira tries to pull Zack away from the part-timer. The police take the Graper into custody, and the students start murmuring, questioning if they've got the right guy. We see Won Bin on a stretcher, thinking he managed to save the kids, but he overhears some students wishing he was the one getting arrested because of his looks. Zack catches their attention and challenges them to say it again, insisting that Won Bin is a hero. He even bows his head in respect. The next day, both of them are in the hospital together. Mira is slicing apples for them, thanking the two for saving her, and Zack can't help but blush a bit. As the month draws to a close, the shopkeeper hands Daniel his payslip, noting that he's included a little extra this time due to Daniel's hard work. He suggests that Daniel consider buying a gift for his parents. Reflecting on this, Daniel decides he wants to get his mom something new and cozy, especially since he noticed her sleeves were quite worn the last time they met. He makes his way to a large clothing store and greets an employee, asking her to guide him to the women's section. They share a laugh, with the employee whispering to a colleague that it's hard to believe he has a girlfriend, so it must be for his mom instead. She warns him that the prices are on the higher side and questions whether he can afford it. Daniel thinks to himself that it's been a while since he's experienced this kind of treatment. Afterward, he boards a bus and greets a woman, informing her that he'll be sitting next to her. She grimaces but begrudgingly shifts over. When the bus finally arrives at its stop, Daniel finds himself back in his old neighborhood. A wave of anxiety washes over him at the thought of possibly running into someone he knows, fearing he might get into trouble. Just then he hears someone call his name. It's a former classmate who used to witness Daniel getting bullied regularly. He gestures for him to take a seat and have a conversation beneath the gazebo. He informs Daniel that after he left, Logan was extremely angry. The people that used to witness Logan's bullying has been steering clear of him, not wanting to become his next target. Daniel can't help but wonder why this classmate is suddenly being so friendly. They hadn't exchanged a word until now. As he glances down, he notices his classmate is busy typing on his phone. Daniel suspects he might be messaging Logan and his crew to come over. He tries to say that he's in a rush and needs to go, but just as his classmate tries to hold him back, a ball comes soaring through the air and smacks him right on the side of the face. A guy, a girl, and the messy look-alike appear. The guy asks Daniel why he transferred schools without informing anyone, mentioning how lonely they've all felt without him. He chuckles at Daniel's classmate and reveals that since he's taken on the role of the new Pikachu, he actually wanted them to beat him Daniel for a break. They start digging through Daniel's belongings, pulling out an envelope and a bag of clothes. The guy rummages through the wallet and discovers a $50 bill that Daniel's mom had given him. They thank Daniel for the cash, but just as they're about to leave, Daniel tells them that they've taken all the money from the envelope but need to return the $5 left in his wallet. Fear causes his hands to tremble. The guy grips Daniel's shoulder, calling him an arrogant loser and questioning his audacity to ask for mercy. He tightens his hold, but it pales in comparison to Vasco's infamous grip. Daniel seizes his wrist and forcefully pushes him to the ground, demanding his $5 back. The guy is taken aback by Daniel's unexpected strength, wondering if he's been hitting the gym. The messy look-alike attempts a head kick, but Daniel remains unfazed. He catches the kick just before impact and throws him down as well. Daniel reflects that this is the first time he's been able to look down on someone after a fight. However, before he can enjoy the moment, he spots a very familiar figure entering the scene. Logan Lee, his arch-nemesis. He traps Pikachu and questions whether he fled because he didn't enjoy their time together. Daniel perceives Logan as a menacing figure, unable to meet his gaze and fixated on the ground. The guy starts kicking Daniel, demanding to know why he embarrassed him in front of his girlfriend. Logan glances at the cash in the envelope and praises him for the amount he has. He instructs Pikachu number 2 to take notes from Daniel and learn from him, as he doesn't make nearly as much. However, he warns that if he attempts to escape, he will track him down and end him. Logan informs Daniel that he'll allow him to graduate from being a Pikachu, which leaves him stunned. He mentions that since he has moved, he has found a new Pikachu. "You can consider this a graduation gift," Logan adds, while counting the money in the envelope. He walks away, cautioning Daniel to keep his distance from his block and waves a farewell. The girl also hands back the clothes her mom gifted him. We shift scenes to find Jay on a phone call while soaking in the bath. The The voice on the other end expresses regret for not being able to meet him again for Thanksgiving and suggests that Jay take a solo trip to clear his mind. After ending the call, he turns on the TV, where a reporter highlights Busan as an excellent vacation destination. As Jay steps out of the bath, we notice his computer is open, revealing that he has booked a ticket to Busan. Meanwhile, we return to Daniel, who has reached his mother's workplace. The two women inform him that his mother usually leaves during her break. He begins to scan the streets, thinking about the gift for his mother and how delighted she will be when he gives it to her. Just then, he hears someone shouting. It's a store employee reprimanding his mom for trying to take the cardboard, explaining they already have someone to handle their trash. The employee allows her to take it, but only this once. Daniel's heart sinks as he realizes she has taken on another job to cover his school fees. Back at the house, Daniel's mom is thrilled to try on the new jersey her son gifted her. She reflects on how grown-up Daniel has become, able to buy such nice clothes. Daniel then brings up his roommate, asking if he can join them for the holidays. Meanwhile, Daniel waits for his bus, and passers-by comment on how he resembles a celebrity. He thinks to himself that with his new physique, he can finally get back at Logan and reclaim the precious $5 bill his mom gave him. Just then, Jay shows up, catching Daniel off guard. Daniel mentions he's heading to a friend's place in Sunukdo and asks about Jay's plans. We see Jay clutching a ticket to Busan. They board the bus together, and when Daniel tells the woman next to him that he has the inside seat, she blushes and quickly moves aside to let him in. He thinks about how he needs a solid reason for being there and for taking turns sleeping to switch with his other body. Jay sits behind him, gazing out the window, and Daniel thinks about the chances that they share the same destination and the same bus even. In the meantime, Jay secretly grins to himself as his ticket lies discarded in the trash at the bus station. The duo arrives at Daniel's house, where his mom greets them with a warm smile while busy packing cardboard boxes. Daniel offers to lend a hand, but she politely declines, explaining that it would be impolite to make guests do her chores. She wishes both Jay and Daniel a good night before heading off to bed, as she has an early start the next day. Daniel glances at his other self and tells Jay that the person sleeping is actually his friend. As night falls, Daniel, now in his new body, goes to sleep while his original body wakes up. He mentions to Jay that he's heard about him from his friend. Jay then hands Daniel a stick of gum. Although it's the wrong brand, meant for those trying to quit smoking, Daniel appreciates the gesture nonetheless. He sits down to fold the cardboard boxes and shares that his mom had given his friends, Daniel, a $5 bill, which was unfortunately stolen because of him. My mom gave it to him from selling these boxes, Daniel explains. It may not be much, but to him, it was a lucky charm. The scene shifts to the next day, where we see Logan handing an envelope to someone. They glance at the cash in the envelope and deliver a sharp slap to his face. They tell him that his contribution falls short of the monthly quota. He offers an apology, but they warn him not to let this happen again. Logan begins to protest, scratching his jewels and pointing out that the usual quota is only $1,000 per grade. He argues that it's unfair for him to collect 3 times what others are expected to contribute each month. The leader retaliates by kicking Logan, telling him to mind his words. He threatens to wash Logan's mouth out with soap, stating he's been lenient because they share the same studio, but he can't give him any more chances. You better pay up by next week, the leader commands as he strides out. The scene shifts to a grand hotel, where the manager is seen greeting one of his VIP guests. As the camera pulls back, we see that the esteemed visitor is Jay, looking sophisticated in his robe and sipping a glass of red wine. The manager mentions that he has looked into the individual Jay inquired about. He describes the person as a student named Logan Lee, notorious for being a troublemaker and a bully at school. As the manager exits, he questions Jay about his interest in Logan, adding that Logan is also a black belt in jiu-jitsu. We shift back to Logan. We find the studio's leader and his 2 companions sprawled out on the floor, unconscious. With a low growl, he warns them that since he has bested them, they shouldn't even think about reclaiming his money. I earned that cash through hard work, Logan asserts. He tells the leader that if they have any grievances, they should take it up with their superior. The leader mutters under his breath, expressing that their boss is a terrifying figure and that Logan wouldn't stand a chance in a fight against him. Meanwhile, we return to Daniel, who is now in his new body, adjusting his shoes. He informs his mom that he's heading out and will return later. As he opens the door, a massive stack of cardboard boxes comes into view. His mom explains that a nearby hotel left the boxes for her to manage, which piques Daniel's curiosity about how that came to be. Later in the day, we see Logan outside, a bag slung over his shoulder. Jay approaches him, and Logan vents about how everyone seems to be after his money today, claiming he's having a streak of bad luck. Thinking Jay is begging, he tries walk past him. However, when Logan tries to dismiss Jay, he stands his ground and extends his hand. "Wait, are you trying to rob me?" Logan questions. He starts asking Jay questions, like who sent him, and if he came alone. Jay doesn't answer any of his questions, and instead starts taking off his jacket to fight. Logan thinks that he is bluffing because he doesn't look strong. He then realizes that Jay actually took his jacket off, so Logan wouldn't be able to grab onto it when they fight. After realizing this, Logan realizes that Jay is serious and tells him to follow him to an old building so they can talk with their fists. We switch to the jujutsu studio. They are on a call with someone. The leader tries explaining that they did have the money, but they were ambushed. It was all stolen. The person on the other end asks them if he must settle it when he arrives at their town next month. The leader replies with a yes, but the person on the other side says it's too bad. The caller is revealed to be Gun, and he says that he's not the collector anymore. He says a character named Gu is collecting everyone's money now. Gun reassures them that he will inform Gu about the current situation. After ending the call, we see the woman he's been tasked with protecting, sitting across the room. He expresses his relief at no longer needing to collect money from everyone, noting that watching over her is far simpler. He also mentions the opportunity to witness talent from various places while traveling with her, bringing up a specific individual his boss instructed him to monitor. Suddenly, a voice calls out from across the room, a man inquiring if he can see who this person is that the boss is interested in. Gun questions his curiosity, to which the man replies that he's simply intrigued. As the camera zooms out, we recognize the pop star who popularized those chrome rings and sneakers. Switching scenes, we find the man who betrayed Daniel to Logan and Messi earlier that week. Daniel approaches him, asking if he knows Logan's whereabouts. The man tries to play it cool in front of his girlfriend, attempting to intimidate Daniel with a silly expression, but Daniel remains unfazed. He looks away and reluctantly reveals that Logan is likely at the jiu-jitsu studio or an abandoned building with his crew. Daniel nods, looking down, and thanks him for the tip. Logan lunges forward with his right hand, but Jay deftly sidesteps the attack. In retaliation, Jay unleashes a flurry of rapid jabs to Logan's face and jaw. As Logan attempts to seize him, Jay leaps back, evading his grasp with agility. With some space between them, Jay launches into a series of high kicks, making Logan realize that his jiu-jitsu skills might not be effective in this encounter. He recognizes Jay's fighting style as Systema. It's the first time he's witnessed it in action, but he has a plan. He snatches the money pouch from his pocket and rips open the envelope, forcing Jay to close the distance. This plays right into Logan's hands, as he knows he can't hold Jay if they're out of reach. In one swift motion, he yanks the envelope away and grabs Jay by the hair, pinning him down. With Jay immobilized, Logan begins to rain punches down on his face. He secures Jay's head under his arm, cutting off his circulation. He squeezes tightly, demanding that Jay tap out and reveal who sent him. Despite the pressure, Jay refuses to give in. Logan warns him that he could lose consciousness if he doesn't act soon. Jay struggles to grab Logan's clothing, but it's futile. After a few tense moments, Jay's body goes limp. In the distance, a scream pierces the air as Daniel calls out for Jay, just in the nick of time. As Daniel floats in the air, he can't help but question why Jay has chosen to confront Logan of all people. He releases Jay to free his hands, and just as Logan's fist is about to come crashing down on him, Daniel swiftly swats Logan's hand aside. Logan is momentarily stunned by Daniel's unexpected strength, especially since Jay had struggled to defend against that very same attack. Where did these kids come from? Logan wonders. He demands to know who Daniel is and who sent him. But the moment Daniel meets Logan's gaze, a rush of emotions floods back to him. Realizing he's at a disadvantage after his recent fight, Logan decides to call it quits. "Get out of here before I change my mind," he growls. Despite his new abilities, Daniel feels a deep-seated fear of Logan that leaves him nearly paralyzed. He feels a wave of relief wash over him at the thought of avoiding a confrontation. Jay, regaining consciousness, notices Daniel carrying him, and he asks if anything still hurts from their earlier skirmish. "It was just unfortunate timing to run into one of the toughest fighters in their town," says Daniel. Jay extends his hand, revealing Daniel's $5 bill nestled within. Daniel is taken aback and asks Jay how he managed to find his lucky charm, but Jay remains silent. "You took it back from Logan instead of me. I feel so ashamed," Daniel admits, clenching his teeth in frustration. Memories of his encounter with Logan flood his mind, and he realizes that while his body may have changed, his thoughts remain the same. The primal fear he harbors for Logan persists, regardless of his new appearance. Overwhelmed, he begins to cry onto the $5 bill, lamenting that he may have changed outwardly, but inside, he still feels like a pathetic pig. Jay jumps off Daniel's back, mistakenly thinking that Daniel's tears are a result of him being too heavy. The following day, Daniel attempts to return a coat he bought for his mom, only to find that the store employees refuse to accept it due to a stain. It was already there, he protests, but the two employees dismiss him. Daniel's mom, however, takes it in stride, saying the coat was too nice for her anyway. Just then, a booming voice interrupts, inquiring about the disturbance. The voice asserts that there is an important customer present, and they cannot afford any disputes. Daniel spins around, taken aback to find Jay impeccably dressed in a suit alongside the manager. Curious, Daniel approaches Jay and asks why he is there. Jay nods in response when Daniel wonders if he's taken on a part-time job. Jay then asks what brings Daniel to the store, to which Daniel explains he's trying to return an item of clothing, but the staff is making it difficult. Hearing this, the manager and employees visibly tense up. Jay glances at the manager and signals them to provide Daniel with a new coat right away. Grateful, Daniel thanks Jay for stepping in to help. In the back of the store, we see two employees on their knees, apologizing profusely for their earlier rudeness towards Daniel's mother. The manager barks at them to speak louder. Daniel's mom attempts to defuse the situation, insisting that apologies aren't necessary. Fast forward a few days, and Daniel is back in his hometown. We find Vasco in the gym, powering through heavy bench presses. After completing his set, he sits up and notices Daniel watching him. He asks how he can help him. Daniel boldly declares that he wants to transform himself. Vasco's eyes widen in surprise as he questions whether Daniel is prepared for the challenge ahead. Daniel expresses his desire to change not just his physique, but his mindset as well. Daniel is out jogging with Vasco, and you can see he's really sweating it out, while Vasco looks completely fresh. Daniel's feeling so wiped out that he thinks he might just collapse. After they finish their run, Vasco gives Daniel a pat on the back for a job well done. Between gasps, Daniel asks Vasco if just running is enough, or if he should pick up a martial art or something. Vasco tells him there are no shortcuts. He explains that hard work pays off, so if Daniel puts in the effort, he can really change himself. Daniel notices the bench press and asks Vasco if he works out every day. Vasco casually mentions that he does 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, 100 squats, and runs 10 kilometers daily. Daniel can't help but wonder how Vasco still has all his hair. Just then, Jace shows up, and Vasco asks if he used telepathy to find him. Jace replies that he just figured Vasco would be here. He then gives Daniel a look and tells Vasco that he hasn't had much time to hang out with him because he's been busy training Daniel for the last 3 days. Zach spots Daniel sipping on a chocolate milk and thinks it's clear that he will eventually give up, questioning why Vasco is even bothering with someone like him. We're back at school, and Zach is still suffering from his injury from the camp mishap. Mira is feeding him like he's a little kid, and surprisingly, he seems to be loving it. Vin-Jin glances at Mary, but she quickly tells him to not even think about it. Vasco gives Daniel a chocolate milk, urging him to drink it before it spoils. Jace notices this, and wonders why Vasco has been handing out so much milk lately. Daniel ponders what kind of crew the Burn Knuckles really are, good or bad. They might look like troublemakers, but he knows there's more to them, especially since they're led by Vasco. Wanting to join in, Jay hands Daniel 2 cartons of chocolate milk, and Daniel thanks him for the thoughtful gesture. As the school day wraps up, we see Woong helping an elderly lady carry a hefty stack of boxes up a hill. Daniel jogs over to lend a hand and manages to push the whole wagon without needing help from Woong or the lady. Woong stares at his hand, amazed that Daniel managed to push the whole wagon all by himself. Meanwhile, in another part of town, 2 kids are crying because their expensive ball is stuck in a tree, and they know their parents will be furious if they can't get it back. Jace notices the situation and decides to kick the tree to try and shake the ball loose. He starts sweating and thinks he should have just kept walking, instead of trying to look cool by kicking the tree. Just as he's having that thought, the tree shakes and the ball falls free. We see Daniel with his leg out, having knocked the ball down with a single powerful kick. He greets Jace, saying it looked like he needed help getting the ball down. Then he points out a bug on Jace's shoulder, which sends Jace into a fight or flight mode, since he's terrified of bugs, and he bolts away. Daniel reflects that maybe the Burn Knuckles gang isn't so bad after all, they just have a tough exterior. Jace is sitting on a bench, lost in thought. He's reflecting on Daniel's kick, and wondering if he might actually be stronger than Vasco. Just then, Daniel, now in his other body, asks Jace what's on his mind. Jace responds that he's thinking about some jerk. He intimidates Daniel a bit, questioning why he's even talking to him. Daniel says he's just curious about Vasco, which catches Jace's attention. Daniel goes on to describe Vasco as amazing, strong, and kind, even saying he wishes he had a body like Vasco's, as if he's from another planet. Jace glances at Daniel and realizes that he might be more attached to Vasco than he initially thought. Maybe he's been through some tough times, Jace muses, and it makes sense why Vasco is looking out for him. He reflects that Daniel has no clue about who Vasco really is and what he's experienced. We see Vasco, whose real name is Yuntei, playing with his action figure. Jace is Yuntei's only friend, and his mom used to give them snacks, always thanking Jace for being there for Yuntei. Later, we find them in class together. Jace shares that he's glad they're in the same class, and when he asks Yuntei if he feels the same, Yuntei nods. Some classmates start chatting about a new mobile game that's gaining popularity. Yuntei begins to feel left out and asks Jace if he's ever played games on his phone. Jace suggests they download the game together. This makes Yuntei very happy. Just then, a few classmates approach Jace, inviting him to walk to the snack shop together. He blushes, agrees, and invites Yuntei along too. While they're waiting in line, some seniors cut in. The biggest one starts asking if anyone has cigarettes. The friend in a gray jersey hesitantly hands over his smokes. He glances at Jace, suggesting they join the seniors for a smoke, thinking it would be a big deal for them. Jace considers it, but Yuntei warns him not to go with them, reminding him that their mom said smoking is bad and that they shouldn't even touch it. He adds that smokers are losers, which seems to irritate the seniors. The big guy then walks over to Yuntei and slaps him across the face, but Yuntei does not apologize and then starts kicking him. Everyone is stunned as Yuntei silently endures the hits. Jace can't even look at Yuntei. The senior in the yellow jacket warns Yuntei that he'll regret calling them losers. The next day, Yuntei shows up to class covered in blood. Jace tries to comfort him, saying those bullies are just pathetic losers who pick on smaller kids like Yuntei, but Yuntei insists he's okay. Jace thinks to himself that Yuntei seems fine, but being around him feels risky, so he decides to keep his distance. Some time passes. Yuntei invites Jace to the snack shop, but Jace declines, saying he's already going with some other friends. He ends up sipping his chocolate milk alone. Some more time passes. While outside the school looking for a place to smoke, Jace hears someone crying and goes to check it out. It turns out to be Yuntei, sobbing all by himself. Jace's eyes go wide. He's never seen Yuntei cry before, so he quickly turns and runs away, trying to forget what he just witnessed. The next week, Yuntei is absent from school. Jace knows he's not the type to just skip out, so he worries that something must have gone wrong. Still, he tells himself it might be for the best since Yuntei was clearly struggling just to come to school every day. Then, one of his friends catches his attention and tells him that he's been asked to bring Yuntei's friend to the seniors. Jace arrives and notices some seniors picking on another student. Two of them spot him and wave him over. The senior in the yellow jacket turns to Jace and asks if he knows why he's there. "Not really," Jace replies, his voice shaky. The senior kicks the other student, who crumples to the ground in pain. Then he pulls out what looks like a pen and asks the student if he wants to end up like that. The student's eyes widen, and he scrambles back against the pole. Jace starts to worry if he's going to face the same treatment as the kid in front of him. The senior in the yellow jacket begins drawing on Jace's face and asks if Yuntei is his best friend. Jace nods, "Yeah." The senior then shoves the marker up his own nose, changes his tone, and tells Jace that Yuntei has been missing school for 2 days. He warns Jace to bring Yuntei back by tomorrow or he'll be the one hanging on that pole, and the thing in his nose won't be a marker. After they leave, Jace and the other students start wiping the marker off their faces. The kid with glasses tells Jace that Yuntei is incredible. He gets beaten up every day but never complains. Jace thinks to himself that Yuntei is really tough, and he couldn't handle that. Fast forward to when Jace is about to ask Yuntei to return to school. He stands outside the door, unsure of how to talk to his friend, whom he feels he has let down. He opened the door, and it was very dark inside. Jace asked if Yuntei was asleep, and Yuntei wanted to know why he had come to visit. Jace rubbed his head and explained that he hadn't seen him at school for 2 days, so he wanted to check in. He handed Yuntei some notes and started to look around the room, spotting some tissues stained with blood. Jace thought to himself that Yuntei must have been hurt pretty badly. To encourage him to return to school, Jace mentioned that they hadn't hung out in a while, and there was a lot of homework piling up. Yuntei saw right through Jace's lie, but assures him he will go back to school. He admitted he had been feeling under the weather for a few days, but was starting to feel better. Jace couldn't help but wonder what the bloody tissues were for then, and continued to search the room. When he went to jot down some notes for Yoontae, he noticed the pen, and Yoontae immediately told him to get rid of it. Jace could see Yoontae trembling at the sight of the pen. Memories of what the senior had said earlier that day flooded back to him. He jumped onto the bed and threw off the covers, and Jace's heart raced. Yoontae's body was marked with irreplaceable, carved brands. Jace breaks down in tears, asking Yoontae why he didn't speak up earlier. He tells Yoontae that he should have just apologized back when he called them losers for smoking, as it could have prevented all this. Yoontae responds quietly, saying that when you show fear, pain, and cry out, it makes them feel powerful. They bully to impress others, and if he gives in to their demands, it means he's losing. Yoontae looks at Jace and insists he doesn't want to be a loser. Jace is too shocked to respond. Yoontae thinks to himself that all good-looking guys are trouble. The next day, Jace confronts the seniors, telling them that Yoontae is really hurt and they should stop their actions. Suddenly, a fist comes flying at him, hitting him right in the face. Jace clutches his face in agony, wondering how Yoontae has endured this pain for so long without a word. The big senior taunts him, asking if he's ready for another hit, and starts targeting Jace while he lies helpless on the ground. The senior leader gets furious, warning that if Jace wants to play the hero, he'll have to face the consequences. He tells his buddies to close the door and keep an eye on things in the hallway. It's just the two of them now. The senior reminds Jace that he had already warned him. If he didn't bring his friend today, he'd be the one hanging out with him instead. He pulls out the tool he used to mark Yoontae. He mentions that while it's meant for eyebrow tattoos, it can also work on belly buttons. Jace shuts his eyes, bracing for a sharp pain in his stomach, but Yoontae shows up just in time. Feeling guilty for dragging his friend back to school, knowing he was just going to face a beating, Jace can't bring himself to look at Yoontae. He reflects on everything Yoontae has done for him, and feels he can't even call himself Yoontae's friend anymore, given all the trouble he's put him through. Just as Jace is lost in thought, Yoontae steps in front of him with his hands raised, surprising everyone watching. "That's my friend," Yoontae declares. The big guy doesn't waste any time and lands a kick right to Yoontae's head. Yoontae tries to throw a punch, but the big guy easily sidesteps it. Another senior jumps in, delivering a kick to Yoontae's side. Yoontae goes for another punch, but again, he misses. A few minutes pass, and the three of them are still at it. The seniors comment on Yoontae's stubbornness, even though they've really beaten him up. "Don't mess with Jace," Yoontae says, blood streaming down his face. Jace crawls over to the senior leader, pleading for the beating to stop. He reaches out, but instead, the leader unleashes a flurry of attacks on Jace. Yoontae can't do anything since he's pinned down by the big guy. The other seniors start to get anxious as the leader is going too far and is losing control. The guy in the blue jacket heads outside to look for teachers. But before he can make it through the door, the big guy spots him flying across the room. We see Gu with the student who was forced to hold onto the pole. "So one's out cold and two are left," Gu says. He winks at Jace, hinting that he's brought in a fighting prodigy to help them. He asks Gu if he can take them all on, and Gu replies that as long as he gets paid, he's in. But the guy in the red jacket is heavy, so it'll cost an extra $200. The seniors ask who he is, and he smirks, saying he's a villain, just like them. The student tells Jace that Gu is a distant cousin of his, and they're the same age, but the big difference is that Gu is an excellent fighter. The big guy swings hard, but ends up getting tripped and kneed as he falls. He seals the deal with a well-placed shot to the groin. The senior leader pulls out a knife and asks Gu if he thinks this is a joke. Gu glances at his cousin and mentions that it'll cost an extra $500 because of the weapon. He wishes he could really teach these guys a lesson, but if he does, he'll end up in a place he really doesn't want to be, so he settles for just knocking them out. Gu notices some engravings on Yoontae and wonders if the senior with the knife did that before. With a knife and a victim in front of him, Gu thinks to himself. He tells his cousin he'll take on the yellow jacket senior for free. A big grin spreads across his face as he adds that since Yoontae looks like he's being bullied, anything he does can be justified as self-defense. His cousin feels a sinking feeling, admitting he was afraid something like this might happen again. Gu's cousin remarks that bad things happen when a wicked person crosses paths with someone even more wicked. The leader charges in for an attack. Before he can get close enough, Gu swings a chair at him. While the leader is down on the ground, he mocks him for being cheap for using a knife in a fistfight. The leader complains about a broken tooth and insists he'll cover all the hospital expenses, but Gu brushes him off and shoves the chair into his face. Then he stomps on the leader's hand, which was reaching for the knife, causing him to scream in agony. Gu shares a story about a kid from his neighborhood who once tried to stab him, and he ended up breaking all the kid's fingers. Now writhing in pain on the floor, the leader asks Gu why he's doing this. Gu flashes an evil grin and replies, "For no reason at all." The leader trembles in fear and ends up wetting himself. Just then, teachers burst through the door and take in the chaotic scene. They manage to calm things down and escort everyone to the principal's office, where the 3 seniors accuse Gu of abuse. However, Gu defends himself, claiming he was just protecting himself and the injured boy. He warns the principal that if he gets punished for defending a relative from a knife-wielding maniac, he'll take the matter to the press. He adds that the school could either face serious consequences or let him leave peacefully. The 3 seniors are visibly shaken by his tone. In the next scene, we see Gu heading home, completely unfazed by the earlier incident. He tells Yoontae that he should give him some cash as a reward for taking care of his bullies, but he's willing to let it go this time. Yoontae then asks Gu how he became so strong. Gu replies that he does 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, 100 squats, and runs 10 kilometers every day. Yoontae vows to himself that he needs to get stronger to protect himself, his friends, and those he cares about. Gu's cousin offers them a skewer, and Yoontae flinches at the sight of the sharp needle. Jace is at a loss for words. Fast forward a few days, and we find the two chatting. Jace mentions that since Yoontae loves birds, he got a bird tattoo. He shows off a bluebird tattoo on the left side of his chest. Yoontae is in awe, but gets nervous when he remembers that getting a tattoo involves a tattoo gun. Jace teases him about being a chicken, but Yoontae insists he'll get the tattoo no matter what. He gets the bluebird tattoo in the same place as Jace. We flash back to before Jace got his ink. He pleads with the tattoo artist to give his friend a cover-up, but the artist thinks Jace is out of his mind for wanting to tattoo a kid. He tells Jace to leave and never return since it's illegal to tattoo minors. In the next scene, we see Jace outside in the cold, sitting on the ground. His snot has frozen, and he's starting to show signs of hypothermia. The tattoo artist finishes up and steps outside, only to find Jace in that condition. He finally says yes, but he needs to practice on him first. We then return to after Yoontae got his first tattoo, where the artist wished he had a friend who would go to such lengths for him, just like Jace does. Fast forward to the present, 3 years later, and Jace claims he has no regrets and is glad to still be by Vasco's side like true best friends. He stands up to head home but is interrupted by loud honking and beeping in the distance. Jace wonders who's riding a bike in the park. As the riders crest a hill, they start to look a bit familiar. Jace spots them right away. They're the senior bullies from their previous school. They park their delivery bikes and notice Vasco working out, but they mistake him for a thug because of his tattoos. As he starts grunting, the 3 bullies look genuinely frightened. The leader warns everyone not to make eye contact. They shift their focus to Jace and Daniel, trying to figure out if they've seen Jace before since he looks familiar. The big guy notices Jace's prominent ears and recognizes him immediately. They get up, and the big guy says he'll bring Jace to them. But before he can act, Vasco starts chatting with Jace. Vasco mentions he needs to use the bathroom. The bullies are taken aback by how casually the two are interacting. As they head toward the bathroom, the leader thinks Jace is making fun of them, as Jace looks back for a second and shoots him a dirty look, signaling them to leave. They then turn their attention to the overweight guy sitting next to Jace, ordering him to follow them for a little chat. They instruct him to stand against a wall. The leader asks Daniel if he's buddies with the guy with the big ears, but before Daniel can respond, Jace jumps in. "Leave my friend alone," Jace says as he stands up to the bullies. "Looks like nothing's changed. Come here, Daniel." Daniel feels touched by Jace's show of friendship and courage. The leader then reveals a scar on his face from their run-in with Gu years ago and threatens Jace, saying he'll give him a few scars too. Jace just brushes him off, telling them all to scram. This infuriates the leader, who charges at Jace, but ends up getting smacked with a wooden sign, clearly not having learned from past mistakes. His 2 friends rush in to help, but are quickly taken down by Jace. "Do you have any idea how hard I've worked every day because of you guys? It's enough to make me bald," Jace declares, looking down at them as they squirm in pain on the ground. He adds that he wishes he could keep going, but he knows Vasco wouldn't be happy about it. Jace heads off, asking Daniel to join him. We flash back 2 years to when Jace and Vasco wrapped up their tattoo sessions. Jace's tattoo reads, "My hero man E.T." Vasco is curious about the meaning behind it, and Jace admits that the movie really moved him when he first saw it. As their chat comes to an end, Vasco starts to walk away, but he turns back to tell Jace that he considers him his hero man. However, as Yoontae leaves, we notice that Jace's tattoo doesn't refer to the alien E.T. It actually stands for Untae. Next, we see Gu chatting with someone, expressing that it feels like he's talking to a celebrity since he's heard so much about him from various detention centers. The person turns out to be Gun, who mentions that he's been assigned to do a partner test with Gu. We switch scenes again to find a student being bullied, using tactics similar to what Gu's cousin had to endure. It becomes clear, though, that the bully is actually Gu's cousin. who, after relying on his cousin for protection, now believes he can act without facing any consequences. "You met my cousin, right? Should I call him? He's a good friend of mine," the bully boasts with a smug grin. A purebred dog is getting compliments from a group of people for her beauty, but they make fun of her mixed-breed puppy. The owner picks up the mixed breed named Inu and promises to hug and sleep with her every day. Inu feels a deep love for her owner. As time passes, Inu grows and becomes almost as big as her mother. One day, her owner looks down and realizes Inu isn't a purebred. Inu continues to think about how much she loves her owner. When it's time to go out to eat, the owner tells Inu to sit. The owner's mother asks her why she doesn't take Inu out anymore. Inu's owner explains that because she's a mixed breed, people will laugh at her. She reassures herself that she'll bring Inu some food later. A few months later, a moving truck is seen getting ready to leave. The parents tell their child that she can take the dogs with her. She pulls her hand from her pocket and tells Inu to sit. As she drives off with the purebred, she leaves Inu behind. Inu thinks to herself, "Don't worry, Mom, I'm great at staying put. Why is Mom acting like that all of a sudden? I've stayed so many times before. What's different about this time?" We can see the condition of Inu and can assume a lot of time has passed. She is skinny, dirty, but yet, she hasn't moved off the spot she was told to sit at by her owner. Inu thinks to herself that the sky keeps getting dark and wonders why her owner hasn't come back yet. Some people try to feed Inu, but she thinks that they are robbers trying to break into her home. Inu lies down in the cold night and sniffs her scarf. It reminds her of her owner who abandoned her. We are now at school and the teacher announces that they have a new transfer student. Do ask if it's a girl, and the teacher nods his head, which gets the guys very excited. But as soon as they see who is standing in the doorway, they all slump in their seats, silent. The girl's name is Crystal Choi. Daniel wonders to himself why a transfer student would come just before the winter vacation. She scans the room and identifies the cool girls group. She keeps looking and finds the unpopular girls group, where she plans to sit with. As she puts her bag down, she spots the cool guys group as well. Daniel looks at Crystal and she reminds him of his other body, who always gets bullied, so he decides to get friendly with her to try to prevent any of that. He says hi to her. He introduces himself as Daniel and tells Crystal that he also transferred to the school a few months ago. "We live in the same area, it seems, so it's nice to meet you," says Daniel. "I hate handsome guys," thinks Crystal. Crystal reflects on how often she's faced humiliation disguised as kindness. With a forced smile, she thanks Daniel. Zach notices the three guys and warns them not to tease Crystal. Do and his friends feel uneasy, questioning when Zach started acting nice. As the school day wraps up, Crystal walks home alone. She hears barking and spots three guys tormenting a thin, abandoned dog. Inu growls at them, determined to protect her home. Mary steps in, questioning why they're hurting the dog and why they aren't with Zach. Do explains that Zach has been acting strange lately, so they went off on their own. He lights a cigarette, ready to burn Inu's sensitive nose, but before he can, Crystal intervenes, shielding Inu from the group. "Stop bothering the poor dog," she demands. Vinjin sneers, asking who she is, and says that she smells bad, but Crystal stands her ground. Inu starts biting at her leg. Crystal thinks to herself about how much she despises people who look down on others. Just as things are about to escalate, Daniel arrives and asks Crystal if everything is okay. She looks up at him, while Vinjin and Do start to sweat as Daniel questions them about the situation. He then turns his attention back to Crystal, inviting her to come closer. The next day, we see Crystal struggling with a stack of heavy papers. Zach and Yui are chatting behind her, and Yui asks Zach if he can lend a hand. He reminds her that both of his arms are in casts. Just then, Crystal accidentally trips and is about to fall, but Zach manages to catch her just in time. "You know my hands are like this, so don't get mad," Zach says. Daniel approaches to help out and asks Crystal if she made it home okay, suggesting they head home together today. "Please don't be nice to me." Crystal suddenly replies, "I appreciate it, but your kindness could complicate things for me." Daniel pauses, trying to grasp what she means. Meanwhile, some girls across the hallway shoot Crystal intimidating looks as she walks away with Zach and Daniel. Yui suspects that Crystal is just pretending to be weak to hang out with the guys. Crystal opens her book, revealing that some students have scribbled all over it. At lunchtime, she's keeping to herself when a group of unpopular girls approaches and dumps their unwanted broiled fish onto her plate. Yui also joins in, adding her own fish to the pile. She reflects on how differently boys and girls bully each other. Boys tend to do it openly to assert dominance, while girls often resort to secretive tactics, revealing their true colors only in private spaces like bathrooms. As the school day wraps up, Crystal is once again spending time with Inu. She glances down at her belly and realizes that Inu is pregnant. Feeling a mix of concern and compassion, she wants to take the dog home, but Inu won't move. Instead of giving the sausage in her hand to Inu, she ends up biting Crystal's arm. Suddenly, she hears a voice behind her and sees Daniel standing there. He tells her he was worried about the dog and brought some food for her. He then asks Crystal if she's also concerned about Inu. Crystal thinks it's odd that this handsome guy seems to care about dogs. She scolds Daniel for only bringing food, since Inu needs water too. Crystal shares Inu's story about how she ended up abandoned on the streets without anyone to look after her. Daniel thinks to himself that Crystal is really compassionate as she tries to coax Inu into eating. He recalls earlier that day when Crystal told him not to be nice to her and wonders why she said that. Scratching his head, he asks her what she meant back then. Crystal thanks Daniel for all his help and explains that, like Inu, she knows how to fight and survive on her own. Crystal confidently declares, "I'm not as weak as you think." She says that if someone keeps offering her support, she might start depending on them. Daniel is taken aback by her words, thinking to himself that she's way tougher than he is. Suddenly, his heart races. Later that day, we hear Crystal talking to herself about the events that unfolded. Her clothes are strewn on the floor next to the shower as she ponders who Daniel really is and why he's pretending to be nice. What a hassle, she thinks. Now the other girls will start targeting me because of him. The scene shifts to reveal that Crystal is in a different body. Is Daniel not the only one with the ability to change forms? She questions why she was advised to keep an eye on him. Glancing over, she sees her other body asleep in bed. Picking up her phone, she notices 87 missed calls from guys eager to chat. She throws on her jacket, slips into her shoes, and heads out to live her real life at night. Gunn is leaning against a car, clearly frustrated about having to wait for Crystal top of the massive mountain. He reminds her that the president is waiting for her. Crystal finally steps out of her gate, apologizing for oversleeping. Gunn teases her, asking if she sleeps all day since it seems like she gets at least 12 hours of rest. Crystal brushes it off, claiming she just needs a lot of sleep. It turns out her father, the president, is the only one who knows about her secret of switching bodies. During a meeting, a group of guys introduces themselves, all blushing a bit. After the meeting wraps up, a father and son approach her, handing over their contact information. They run a powerful law firm and offer their help if she ever needs it. Crystal can't help but think that all these fancy business cards made from eggshells are just typical of men, as she glares at the two in front of her. On their way back to her mountain house, Gunn playfully teases Crystal about how the son from the law firm seemed quite fond of her. She dismisses it, saying they only care about her looks and not who she really is inside. Crystal decides to hop out of the car early to jog the last stretch of the journey to burn some calories, but while running, she remembers Inu and takes a detour. As she runs, she ponders why her father wants her to keep an eye on Daniel from school. She wonders if he has some special talent like hers or the other guys, but doubts it, thinking he's probably just another guy who only likes pretty girls. When she finally reaches Inu's spot, she's surprised to find Daniel from the convenience store squatting in front of the dog, trying to coax Inu into eating something. Crystal says hi to Daniel and asks how he knows about Inu. Daniel explains that he heard some barking coming from the convenience store, so he decided to check it out. They chat for a bit, and Crystal surprises him by revealing that they're the same age. Daniel mentions that Inu is pregnant and that he's trying to help her gain some weight. Crystal is impressed by Daniel's thoughtfulness and kindness, thinking to herself how caring he is. She recalls all the times she saw him working out at the convenience store and remembers her own journey of self-improvement. Crystal suggests they work out together since she enjoys it too, and it would be a great way to get to know each other better. Daniel is taken aback. He's never been asked to work out by such a beautiful woman before, and wonders if she's up to something like a pyramid scheme or an organ business. He also thinks back to when he offered to help her, but she turned him down, wanting to handle things on her own. Daniel thinks to himself, I want to be like her. I need to be strong. He appreciates Crystal's offer, but politely turns it down, expressing his desire to tackle his challenges on his own. He echoes a phrase Crystal once said while in her pig form, leaving her momentarily speechless. Wow, he thinks like I do. Who is this guy? Crystal wonders, feeling her heart race unexpectedly. Just then, a voice calls out for Daniel, breaking the moment. It's Zoe, letting him know the store is locked and asking how long he's kept her waiting outside. She grabs his hand and leads him toward the convenience store, glancing back at Crystal, who is blushing slightly. The next day, Inu is preparing for childbirth, sensing that the babies are ready to arrive. She realizes someone has taken her scarf and worries about how she'll protect the house after giving birth. Shivering from the cold, she hopes no one will start trouble with her again. Just then, a dark figure appears from around the corner. Inu starts barking fiercely to scare off the intruder. The person reaches out their hand and she bites it. Are you back for something? Inu thinks anxiously. Get lost, thief. She keeps attacking the stranger until their hand is covered in blood. The camera shifts up, revealing that the mysterious figure is actually Daniel. He comments that Inu only nibbled on Crystal and wonders if it's because he took her scarf. He builds a cardboard house for Inu, which makes her feel a lot better. He retrieves Inu's scarf and hands it back to her. "Sorry for taking it," he explains. "It was dirty and I didn't want your pups to get sick." Inu is thrilled to have her scarf back in good shape and rolls around in her cardboard box, wagging her tail. Daniel watches from afar as Inu gives birth to 4 adorable puppies, and he couldn't be happier. He approaches her and slides a bowl of seaweed soup her way. As Inu notices the bandages on his hand from her bites, she starts licking the soup, and Daniel jumps for joy, thrilled that she's finally warming up to him. From a distance, we spot Crystal observing the two of them, holding a flask of something. She can't help but smile, knowing that Inu is about to start putting on weight again. Meanwhile, outside the convenience store, a few people are grumbling about how long Daniel has been in the restroom. The following day, Crystal is still in her mature form. The heir of the H law firm wonders if asking her out for a meeting on such short notice is too much to handle. Crystal thinks it's quite a burden, but keeps that to herself. They chat about dull business matters until the law firm heir shifts the conversation and asks for her number. Crystal forces a big smile and tells him maybe another time. His heart races, and Crystal thinks to herself that understanding men is so straightforward. Later that night, she receives a call from the principal's office in her smaller body, inquiring about her recent absences. Crystal tries to brush it off, claiming she's sick. When they ask about her parents, she admits she hasn't been in touch with her mom and that her dad lives far away. They inquire if she has a guardian, and she confirms she does. As the camera shifts to her other body, the next day she shows up in her mature form and all the boys can't help but blush. A staff member is chatting with Crystal, and he can't help but blush when he sees her, drawing a comparison between her and her twin sister, who also goes to the school. Feeling annoyed after the teacher made that comparison based on their looks, Crystal storms out. As she walks through the hallway, everyone stops to stare at her. Vin-jin thinks to himself that he's never seen anyone as beautiful as her. Meanwhile, some girls in Daniel's class start whispering about whether Crystal has been skipping school due to Yui's bullying. Yui, with a scowl, snaps back, "Why are you looking at me? I didn't bully her." Zack then catches her attention, expressing his disappointment, saying he thought she had changed after their incident with her ex-boyfriend at the convenience store. This surprises Yui. A few guys in the class stand up for her, but Zack quickly shuts them down, insisting they shouldn't be fawning over a girl. Mia chimes in, asking Zack if he's about to start another fight, but he brushes it off, claiming he has no clue what she's talking about. The supporters of Yui fire back, pointing out that he's doing exactly what he told them not to do. Suddenly, a box full of burgers is dumped on the teacher's desk. Crystal then reveals that she's actually Crystal's sister. Daniel finally remembers where he's seen her before, at the convenience store. Zoe thinks to herself that she recalls seeing her with Daniel just a few days ago. Crystal locks her eyes on Yui, and with irritation asks her not to disturb her twin when she returns to school. Yui avoids looking at her and feigns innocence, claiming she has no clue what Crystal is talking about. Daniel shoots a disapproving look at Crystal, thinking she's being pretty rude to someone she just met. Noticing Daniel's glare, Crystal shoots one back, recalling how she warned him not to let his looks inflate his ego during the auction at the festival. She figures Daniel's pride is bruised because of her, while Daniel reflects on how she used to be nice to his other self. It seems like the two body switchers are at odds. Meanwhile, we check in with Inu and her crew, who have all put on some weight and look quite healthy. Daniel sets down a bowl of dog food for the dogs and says, "I have to head to work. I'll be back later," as he waves goodbye. Inu remembers her previous owner saying the same thing. The pups dash after Daniel, and Inu barks for them to return, knowing they should wait for their old owner, but she can't help but see how much they enjoy Daniel's company. Inu grabs her scarf and heads over to Daniel. "I'm sorry, my owner, your scent is fading." She thinks to herself, "I have to stay here, but can I wait with him?" She leaves her spot and follows Daniel home. A few months later, Daniel is feeling anxious about managing the expenses of raising 4 puppies and their mother all on his own. Zack suggests that Daniel consider putting them up for adoption. Daniel replies that he wants to find someone he can visit regularly, so Zack proposes giving them to Jay. However, Daniel hesitates, not wanting to impose on him. The next day, we see 4 adorable puppies, dressed in stylish outfits. Jay's butler questions him about his sudden decision to adopt 4 puppies, especially since he's not fond of dogs. We then flash back to Jay offering to take care of the dogs for Daniel. Daniel expresses his gratitude, and we can see a smile spread across Jay's face.
Vasco's eyes brighten as he asks Daniel if it's true that he has 5 golden retrievers. Daniel nods but clarifies that they are with Jay now, not him, and they are not entirely purebred. They have some mixed breed in them. Vasco reassures him that he doesn't mind about the mix. Zach sits next to Daniel with his arm in a cast, enjoying being spoon-fed by his girlfriend, Mira. Vasco then shows Daniel a picture on his phone, revealing an adorable puppy on his home screen. He pleads with Daniel to let him see the puppies, while Jace, Vasco's close friend, wonders why Vasco has a dog of all things as his wallpaper. Daniel smiles but explains that their mother just gave birth and is still a bit sensitive, so Vasco can only be near them for now. Vasco feels let down but tries to stay positive. Suddenly, a voice from across the room interrupts. It's Taejun, known for his tall tales. He claims to have a golden retriever and invites Vasco to see it. However, Jace is doubtful and asks Taejun how big his dog is. Taejun replies that it's the size of a chihuahua. Jace turns to Vasco, telling him that Taejun is just making things up again. Alone, Taejun wishes he received the same attention as Vasco and his friends, feeling invisible unless he fabricates stories. Later that night, Taejun is in bed, scrolling through his phone. He watches a handsome guy role-playing as a boyfriend and feels frustrated that the guy can become a social media star just because of his looks. Taejun fumed as he thought, how is this guy a Facebook star? Those shirtless guys who rely on their looks for likes are the worst. Frustrated, he set up a stream to try and replicate their success, but without the looks or a following, no one tuned in. He glanced at popular streams and saw Daniel doing a boyfriend cosplay. If I were as handsome as him, I'd rule Facebook, he says to himself. Then, he stumbled upon another live stream featuring an unattractive man rubbing rice under his arms and then eating it. Taejun considered that since he wasn't good-looking, he could create similar content on his Facebook live stream. However, when he attempted the rice rubbing, he was met with hate comments accusing him of copying successful streamers. To lift his spirits, he checked out his attractive friends on Facebook. He admired a recent post from his favorite friend and commented on how stunning she looked. When he slid into her DMs, he noticed she hadn't replied to any of his messages. In her latest post, she had responded to someone named Daehoon. Curious, he clicked on his profile and saw 3 tough-looking guys with flashy cars. Daehoon had 300,000 followers and was only 18. As he scrolled through Daehoon's posts showcasing his wealth and jewelry, jealousy consumed Taejun. Daehoon seemed to attract all the beautiful women, while he struggled to get even one to notice him. Determined, Taejun devised a final plan to boost his followers on Facebook. He sets up his camera and starts to mock the gangster, hurling insults and playful jabs. You pathetic little whiner, with all those tattoos, did your mom suggest that? He continues for a few more minutes before stopping the video. Excited about his first post, he shares it on his account and rolls around in bed. 30 minutes pass and no one has viewed the video. Feeling down, he decides that if there are no likes or comments by morning, he will delete it. When Taejun wakes up, he checks his phone, expecting nothing new. He opens Facebook and his heart sinks. The video has received 70,000 likes and 10,000 comments. Now, Taejun has 10,000 followers. A huge grin spreads across his face as he realizes he's become a Facebook star. Meanwhile, we see Daehoon, the gangster, looking down at someone in just their underwear, bleeding. He hears his name being called by a friend who wants him to check something out. They watch Taejun's video together. Daehoon's anger is evident as he wonders what this ugly fool's problem is. The next day, Taejun is seen walking through the school hallway. As he passes by, his classmates begin to whisper about him. Hearing their chatter makes him blush, as he finally feels the attention he has longed for. Du approaches him in the corridor and mentions that he saw Taejun's viral video. He expresses his desire to collaborate on a video for Facebook, which makes Taejun blush again. Previously, Du would have ignored someone like him, but now he treats him as an equal. Du then goes to Daniel and asks if he wants to join in on a video, as he aims to expand his live streams beyond Paprika TV. He thinks to himself that Daniel's looks alone are worth a fortune. Daniel recalls the moment he first gained fame on Facebook, remembering the video where Zach beat him up when he switched schools. He used to see Zach as just a thug, but now he has become much kinder and calmer. However, Daniel is unsure about Du's personality outside of school. When Du pressures him to collaborate, Daniel asks for some time to consider it. Zach interrupts their conversation, politely requesting Du to lower his voice since he is trying to sleep. He challenges Zach, asking if he really needs to be quiet. Zach retorts, questioning if Do is trying to provoke him. Do says that he has spent a lot of money on Zach and believes that beggars should show respect. He thinks to himself that since Zach has a cast, he can't hit him. Crystal has been eavesdropping on the entire conversation and is contemplating whether to blacklist Do's ID, as it appears that fame has gone to his head. As a major shareholder of Paprika TV, she feels concerned. Meanwhile, Zach stands up after being insulted as a beggar, prompting Daniel to try to calm things down. He asks if they are no longer friends, but Do retorts that Zach never had friends. He merely uses those around him as slaves. Zach is taken aback by Do's harsh opinion. "Your act of kindness is getting old, Zach. You're just a fighter," Do yells, as others push him away from Zach. The scene shifts to Taejun, who is reviewing his recent posts that aren't performing as well as his previous videos. He begins to panic, fearing he might lose the attention gained from his viral hit. To maintain his fan base, he decides to do something drastic and starts buzzing off all his hair. Next, we see Daehoon on his throne with his friends, who ask how he plans to handle a recent online star mocking him. Daehoon replies that he won't take any action because they are no longer children and can simply ignore it. He tells his friends that if they let every little thing upset them like they did in their youth, it would never end. The following day, Taejun approaches Do to see if he wants to film together. Do notices that Taejun seems stressed and losing hair, suggesting he might be losing viewers. He agrees to film, but only under one condition, smirking as he points a finger at Taejun. After school, the duo is seen streaming, with Daehoon's name painted in red behind them. The streaming session is going really well, and they begin to read the comments coming in. Taejun feels pleased to be in the spotlight again, but asks Do if they might be overdoing it, worried that Daehoon could retaliate if they continue creating this kind of content. Do reassures him, saying there's no need to worry. Daehoon is too busy to bother with them, he claims. Their videos are performing increasingly better, with the first one receiving 18,000 likes and the second one hitting 99,000. Soon after, they land their first sponsorship deal worth $1,000. Taejun reflects that he feels like a celebrity now and believes he has finally succeeded. Curious, he checks the comments on their latest video, but as he reads more, he starts to feel anxious. The comments reveal that Daehoon has responded to all of their videos. He visits Daehoon's profile and watches the pinned video, where Daehoon mentions that he has heard 2 people are mocking him. He names Taejun and Do, congratulating them for getting his attention. He warns them that he will be coming after them, and the camera zooms out to show his friends with their luxury cars. Daehoon declares he won't stop searching until he finds them, as someone in the comments has disclosed their identities and locations. Daehoon is live streaming their pursuit. He addresses the camera, mentioning that they are about to begin the search for Do and Taejun. They take a break to enjoy some fish cakes. Daehoon informs the viewers that they are traveling 100 miles to track down the 2 troublemakers. He expresses frustration, saying they are wasting time and money to find them, but assures that he will see them soon. Meanwhile, Taejun turns off his phone and starts to sweat nervously. Thinking about Daehoon's determination, Do, wrapped in a blanket, suggests making an apology video, but Taejun insists it's too late for that. Even an apology won't stop Daehoon from searching for them. They decide to stay put in their room. After a while, boredom strikes Taejun and he checks his DMs. To his surprise, his favorite friend on Facebook has replied. He excitedly shouts about receiving a message from a girl, which gets Do thrilled. His heart races as he struggles to figure out how to respond. Do takes the initiative and messages her, suggesting they meet up to get to know each other better, and adds that he will bring a friend along so he can come as well. Later in the day, they find themselves in a cafe when they hear someone calling their names. It's the girl they were chatting with, standing right in front of them. Meanwhile, we switch to Zach, who is being questioned by Daehoon's friends about whether he has seen someone named Do. Fearing he might be in trouble, Zach denies knowing him or having seen him before. He begins to walk away, but the 2 of them are upset by how casually Zach dismissed them. One of them prepares to slap Zach, but before he can get close, Zach delivers a swift kick to his jaw. Picking on someone with a cast? Now I'm in a bad mood, Zach remarks. Just as he finishes speaking, a baseball bat comes crashing down on him, striking his casts. You're quick if you can dodge that, Daehoon comments. Can you use your cast as a shield, or was that just instinct? Hai targets Zach's casts again, landing a hit on his elbow. Daehoon's friends watch as Zach endures the beating, unable to fathom the pain he must be feeling. Daehoon tells Zach he's a bit busy right now, so he'll have to come back later to finish him off. Zach wonders what Do did to provoke such dangerous people. He reflects on his past behavior earlier in the year, realizing he used to be just like Daehoon, picking fights over minor annoyances. Meanwhile, we return to Do and Taejun, where we finally see the woman who had been messaging Taejun. While her face looks the same, her shoulders are much broader, and she appears heavier than in her photos. Her friend, who is with her, also looks different from her online pictures. Do is frustrated by the deception and suggests they all head to the theme park. He tells Taejun to grab his motorcycle to pick them up. As they leave the shop, he quietly tells Taejun that they don't actually have a motorcycle. In the next scene, we see the two of them, out of breath and far from the cafe, having ditched their dates. But before they can fully recover, a car pulls up and a door swings open, knocking Do to the ground. Taejun is startled to see Daehoon and his gang, who are live streaming the entire encounter. Daehoon strikes Do in the face with his elbow and snatches Taejun's hat off, exposing his bald head to everyone watching the live stream. Some viewers contemplate calling the police, and Daehoon's friends urge them to do so, apologizing for the commotion. The crowd begins to question whether Do and Taejun did something to provoke the attack. The friend with a camera approaches Do, who is unconscious, and Daehoon slaps him to wake him up. An elderly woman interrupts, asking why they are causing such a disturbance in broad daylight. Daehoon removes his cap and bows to her in apology. The old lady assumes that Daehoon's confidence and kindness justify his actions against Do, as he must have done something to upset the kind and respectful man. The following day, the video of Daehoon attacking Do has gone viral on Facebook. Daniel hears rumors about Do, noting that he hasn't been to school since the incident. Zach recognizes the man in the video as the one who had attacked him with a baseball bat. I knew he would end up like this, acting so arrogant about being a popular streamer, Zach thinks. Another video appears on Daehoon's account, where he states that violence is wrong, but he draws the line at insults directed at his mother. He exhales smoke and mentions that Taejun escaped before they will catch him soon, so the search continues. As I promised, I won't go home until I find him. I'll be waiting for your tips, he declares. And with that, the video ends. We are now with Taejun, who is hiding away in a dark alleyway. He is coming to the realization that he has nowhere to escape to. He hears his name being called from the street. He shrieks in fear, expecting to see Daehoon, but it's just a couple who say that they've seen his videos on Facebook and would love a photo with him. Taejun blushes. He starts to think about all the people who know about the hunt and how many viewers he would get if he were to upload a video or photo of himself right now. He starts streaming and tells the camera, Daehoon will never be able to find him, not in a million years. The post is going crazy, and all the viewers are waiting for Daehoon to finally catch his prey. The final school bell rings, and Zach stands up. Daniel asks him if he is going to rescue Do from Daehoon. He suggests that they just call the police, but Zach tells him that that's not a good idea, as they will just give Daehoon a warning and then release him. Calling the cops won't change his behavior, says Zach. He thinks about all the mean words Do said to him a few days earlier and tells Daniel that he has a personal debt to pay to Daehoon Shin. I will save my slave while I'm at it, Zach says as he walks away. Daniel reflects on all the wrongs Do has done to him, but he knows he can't let Zach go alone. He recalls how much he and Zach have evolved over the months, and wonders if Do might be changing too. Meanwhile, we shift to the Burn Knuckles, who have chosen not to assist Taejun. Jace explains that he initiated the conflict, and it goes against their principles to help a member, regardless of their actions. He warns that a confrontation with Daehoon and his gang could escalate quickly. Vasco agrees with Jace but decides to take matters into his own hands, stating he will go alone. I just want to see a golden retriever, Vasco adds. Jace lets out a deep sigh, eyes closed. Now we focus on the man of the hour, who appears to be hiding in a warehouse. Daehoon and his crew enter after receiving a tip-off. They conduct a quick search but leave soon after, distracted by their hunger. Once the door closes, Taejun breathes a sigh of relief. He realizes that to truly escape Daehoon, he must leave the country. He pulls out his phone to book a ticket, but just as the light shines on his face, Daehoon steps out from the shadows. "Found you," he whispers, causing Taejun's heart to drop. We are currently in the car with the group. Daehoon is speaking to the camera about their destination. He turns the camera to the back seat, where one of his friends playfully puts their foot in his face. Daehoon informs the viewers that their next video will feature them beating up the two imposters. Zack and Daniel arrive at the building. Taejun and Do are supposed to be in. Daniel questions how Zack knew they would be there, and Zack explains that the building was visible during their stream as they entered. Daniel starts to feel anxious about the possibility of facing real gangsters. Suddenly, Vasco appears. He tells them he's not there to assist them, as he has his own reasons for coming, and Daniel reflects that the situation feels oddly familiar. Zack asks Vasco why he came alone, and Vasco reassures him that he can reach out to Jace telepathically if needed. Inside the building, Do and Taejun are kneeling on the cold floor, almost naked. Daehoon tells the camera it's minus 60 degrees Fahrenheit. The three heroes peek over a ledge to see what's happening. Daehoon announces that everyone should choose a punishment for the two losers, and he'll return shortly. The video pauses, and he gives heat packs to Taejun and Do, complimenting Taejun on his performance and saying no one suspects anything yet. Some minutes go by, and they record another video. He informs them that they will be jumping from the third story, leaving Zack and Daniel in shock. Do and Taejun are visibly anxious, realizing they cannot safely attempt the jump without breaking a foot or leg. The heroes have revealed their presence. Daehoon recognizes Zack and inquires if he overheard everything. Zack ignores the question and asks Do why he is involved in the entire charade. Daehoon interrupts, stating that it is not Zack's business to ask those questions. He explains that initially it was genuine, but when he caught Do, he saw a significant increase in views and followers. Consequently, he decided to script the entire event, including Taejun's capture. Daehoon smirks, revealing his plan to sell his accounts for $150,000 once he is done sucking the whole beating up Taejun and Do scenario dry. He allowed Taejun to escape and instructed him to broadcast the escape so Daehoon could catch him and create a dramatic reveal. Vasco approaches Taejun and tells him that he started all of this, so he should apologize. If he does so, Vasco will ensure he leaves unharmed. Daehoon interrupts, stating that he will not let Taejun go until he has used him to gain more clicks and followers. Daehoon then turns to Taejun and asks if he really wants to listen to what Daehoon has to say. He reflects on his initial desire for attention, and as tears fall down his face, he screams that he just wanted attention. Vasco says, "Then let's go," but before he can leave, Daehoon blocks the exit, demanding to know where Vasco thinks he is going. Vasco tells Daehoon that he is a bad guy and needs to be beaten up. Daehoon responds by grabbing Vasco's shirt, and upon seeing Vasco's tattoos, he begins to wonder if he has confronted a real gangster by mistake. Vasco then demands that Daehoon let go. He begins to sweat, regretting his choices. Vasco tightly grips Daehoon's hand, squeezing it hard. He steps back and picks up his bat with his left hand, as his right arm is rendered useless from Vasco's strong grip. Daehoon challenges Vasco to come at him, but he declines, stating he doesn't want to fight, he just wants to take Taejun and leave. "You promised to show me a golden retriever, right? Let's go," Vasco says, glancing back at Taejun. Taejun's eyes widen as he realizes Vasco genuinely thinks he has a chihuahua-sized golden retriever. Daehoon tells Vasco that if he only came for Taejun, he can take him and go. "Take him and get lost. We'll film the rest with Do," he says, waving his bat in front of Vasco. He looks over at Zack, signaling it's his turn to step in. Zack tells Vasco to take Taejun and leave, as it's his moment to shine. Daehoon laughs at Zack, asking if he plans to use his broken arm as a shield again like last time, and if he's there to retrieve Do. He can't believe what he's hearing. Is Zack really here to save him after everything he's done? Zack clarifies to Daehoon that he's not there to save Do, he just wants to get back at him for what he did to his arms. Do looks down at the ground. Daehoon throws his bat down and tells his friend to start filming. Instead of recording Do, they will capture him beating up Zack. Zack warns him to pick up his bat before he regrets it. Daehoon mocks Zack while addressing the camera. "It looks like you're acting out because you're here to help your friend," he says. Daehoon notices Zack's stance and realizes he's a boxer. He thinks Zach might rely on his legs for kicks since he can't use his fists properly. Before Daehoon finishes his thought, Zach charges in and lands a powerful right hook right on Daehoon's face. We can hear the bones in Zach's arm breaking again. Everyone in the room is stunned that Zach threw a punch with his injured arm. Zach quickly follows up with a left punch, hitting Daehoon again. Standing over him, Zach tells Daehoon that he lost the fight the second he dropped his bat. He then grabs Doo's attention, draping his jacket over him and warning that he might catch a cold without proper clothes. "Let's go home," Zach says. Daehoon's friends consider calling for backup, but Vasco stops them with his famous grip of death, reminding them that the camera is still recording. Vasco picks up the camera and accidentally shows Daniel, who, unsure of what to say, explains that the entire story was fake all along, and thanks everyone for watching. It seems Vasco and Zach managed to rescue their friends without a scratch. The next day, Zach opens his mouth as Mira continues to feed him due to his broken arms. She asks him how much longer he has to keep his casts on, and Zach replies that he doesn't know. The doctor says, "I need more time," he says. He reflects that he was close to fully recovering until his first encounter with Daehoon, which has now delayed his recovery by a few more weeks. Meanwhile, Jiho checks his bag and realizes he forgot his gym clothes. His only friend going to the gym today is Duke, who wears much larger sizes. Hearing this, Du offers to lend Jiho his clothes since he plans to skip gym class anyway, as long as Jiho washes them afterward. The other guys in the class notice what Du is doing, and Zach can't help but smile. We then switch to Taejun, who is welcoming Vasco and Jace into his home. Jace is surprised to see a small golden retriever, about the size of a chihuahua, and he apologizes to Taejun for doubting him. He thinks to himself that Taejun looks much better since he stopped streaming on Facebook. In another scene, if you've been wondering where Jay has been, he is seen trying to get directions to the construction site. However, since he didn't speak, the elderly lady he approached didn't understand him. Jay spends the entire day searching for the site, but ultimately gives up at midnight.
We are in the cafeteria. 3 girls aren't eating their food, just staring wide-eyed at the group of boys across the room. Daniel is talking to Zach, with Jay in tow. Zach says that he is famished and thirsty, and asks Daniel if he could get him some water. Daniel asks hot or cold, and he replies by saying that he would like his water to be cold. Daniel also mentions that they are having pork for lunch today. The girls from the other side of the cafeteria start to gossip about Daniel. They all talk amongst each other about how good-looking he is, and that he is even famous on Facebook. One girl also adds that Daniel can even fight, as he beat Zach in a fair and square match. Zach flinches a little at hearing this. Daniel isn't getting only positive attention, though, as some of the guys are jealous he is getting so much attention from the woman. 2 of the guys grit their teeth, while the blonde-haired boy just eats his food in anger with his eyes closed. The black-haired boy says out loud that being a Facebook star is lame and cringy, and the other student in the group adds that his thing down there is probably very small. They tell the girls that their friend Bayam is a lot better looking than Daniel, and he sweats a little from all the compliments his friends are saying. Bayam says that if he were to start a social media account, he would be much bigger than Daniel. He glances to Daniel to see his reaction, but bro isn't even looking at him. Daniel is just laughing at something Zach said. This angers Bayam as he doesn't like being ignored. Some time passes and the bell for the end of the day rings. As Daniel and Zach are walking out the school gate, we see them stopped, looking at someone in front of them. It's a short man, dressed casually, with his hands outstretched in front of him. He asks Daniel if he could please take his business card. The man tells him that he saw him on Facebook and then ran to find him. "I'd like you to be a model for my clothing website," he asks while panting. We can see the business card. It is a sleek gray card with the man's contact details and the link to the website. The man tells Daniel that he tried to contact him on Facebook multiple times, but he never heard back from him. Daniel apologizes, saying that he doesn't go onto Facebook very often. Zach steps forward, saying that he could help him out, and asks what the pay is like. He is smiling from ear to ear. The man tells the duo that he would pay Daniel $100 a day to model for him. This is a ton of money for them, and they both are shocked at how much this man is willing to pay. Zach instantly says that he will do it, but the man politely tells Zach that he can't hire him because of his arm cast. Bielm and his friend are walking out and start to eavesdrop on the conversation. He chuckles a bit, looking at the man and thinking that even if Daniel models, he won't be wearing expensive clothing and look bad in it. Suddenly, a car vrooms in front of the school gate and comes to a screeching halt. A man in expensive clothing steps out and asks Daniel if his name is Daniel Park. Daniel Park says yes, and the man then proceeds to take out a shiny gold business card, a lot better looking than the first man who showed up. He reads the website's name and is surprised to see that he is being offered to model in the best online clothing shop in Korea. Byum starts to sweat profusely. His friend turns to him and asks him if that's the website that hired him, and Byum begrudgingly says that the well-dressed man is his boss. Zach tells the man that if he wants to beat the first man's offer, he will have to pay more than $100. The man thinks to himself for a while and tells Zach that he would pay Daniel $100 as well, but not as a daily wage, but hourly. Zach gets very excited at the offer, but the man says that he can't hire Zach because of his caste. Daniel is also very shocked once again at this offer. He wonders to himself if the man's offer is even real, as he has never heard of anyone earning that much before. Some students behind him start talking loudly that they would take the offer, even if they were paid an hourly rate of $10 an hour. Daniel tells Mr. Moneybanks that he will contact him after he thinks about his offer. We can see the short man just look down, as he already knows that Daniel is going to accept the rich man's offer, as he is paying a lot more than him. Byum's friend is amazed by the offer and asks him if he is making that much. Byum doesn't answer and grits his teeth, telling himself that he is only being paid $30 an hour and wonders what makes Daniel more than triple as special as him. Zach is still not over his caste and starts complaining that if he never had the caste, he would have been able to make great money as well. The sun is now setting, and we can see Daniel's mom inside his house. She asks him if he would like her to make his favorite, crab soup. Daniel is overjoyed at her suggestion and immediately tells her that he would love that. She tells Daniel that she needs groceries and asks Daniel if she can show her the way around. He gets up and puts on a long sleeve, telling her that he will be 2 minutes. His mom asks if they should wake up his friend so he can eat with them. But Daniel says that his friend was very tired today, so maybe another time. She sees all of Big Daniel's clothes on a clothing rack and asks Daniel if all of those clothes belong to his friend. He tells her that she is correct. He shows her his clothing rack of boring colored clothes, but Daniel says he's okay with it, as he doesn't go out often, just to get groceries and work. His mother is a little saddened by Daniel's attitude towards his clothing choices, compared to his somewhat well-off friend, judging from all the expensive clothes. They start walking around the city, and his mom takes him to a clothing store, saying that she will pay for some new clothes for him. Daniel says that he doesn't need any new clothes, but his mom insists. They go to the clothing store that was willing to offer Daniel $100 an hour to work. As they walk in, they are met with 2 people loudly arguing about something. It is Byum asking his boss why he was willing to pay someone more than triple his hourly rate. The boss doesn't say anything and tries to ignore Byum as much as possible. He takes one look at Daniel and his mother and apologizes, saying that the store is not open yet. They are just having a team meeting. Daniel goes against him, saying that they have seen other people around the store, and the doors are open and the lights are on. The boss's patience is used up, so he tells them both to their faces that nothing the store has will fit them, and it's too expensive for them to buy anyway. Daniel's mother goes into a fit of rage, screaming at the boss for assuming they can't afford any of the clothes in store. She tells Daniel to pick out anything he wants. He takes one look at the price tag and they both end up outside the store, shocked by how expensive everything was. His mother tells him that she will make more money so he can get something from that store. Daniel tells her that he doesn't care about clothes too much, so she mustn't work too hard. Daniel glances back at Byum and the boss as they make fun of both of them. He reads the lips of the boss as he calls his mom a beggar. This makes him very angry. We see a brand new van on a street as it starts slowing down to a stop. People walking up and down the street see the luxurious van and wonder if it's a celebrity. Byum and another woman are working. The people around them grumble a bit, as they are taking most of the space on the sidewalks. Byum doesn't know that everyone is annoyed with him, so he thinks that they are all jealous of his looks. Mr. Moneybags walks out of the van with coffees for everyone. Byum thinks to himself that his boss is only here to check out the female models. He glances slightly in her direction and sees her thanking their boss for the coffee. Her name is Joy Hong. To impress everyone around him and Joy Hong, he tells himself that he will need to put on a 5-star performance today. A certain smell starts to wade throughout the air as a discontinued van sputters all over the street and grinds to a halt. The man that first offered Daniel a modeling job can be seen hauling the heavy bags out the van. Biom and his boss laugh at the poor man, saying it's pathetic that he has to do the job of 3 different people, all by himself. But something catches Joy's eye, and she starts to blush as she stares at something. Everyone turns their attention towards whatever Joy is staring at, and everyone's jaw drops. It's Daniel. He steps out the car in a good-looking outfit. He asks the man if they're at their destination, and that he can help carry the heavy bags. Biom strikes a pose, and several camera light flashes go off after he switches to different poses. 2 women watch him in awe. He catches them looking at him, and he thinks to himself that he is finally getting the attention he deserves as he smirks a little. Another 2 women start looking his way as well, and Biom is loving all the eyes on him. Joy is also staring his way. As he turns around to change his pose, he realizes the real reason everyone is looking in his direction. It's because of Daniel. The man with the camera compliments Daniel on his modeling ability. Daniel responds by saying that he is glad that he likes it. He apologizes to Daniel for not having any makeup team like the other big companies, but Daniel tells him that he doesn't mind too much. As Biom is getting his makeup fixed, he hopes Daniel would look over at him so he will feel jealous. Daniel tells the man that he is already the driver, the photographer, and coordinator. So, there's no pressure for there to be people on standby to fix his makeup. The man tells Daniel that they should take a little break, and he goes to fetch a drink for Daniel. As Daniel sits down on a flight of steps, everyone down the street looks at him, as they ask each other if he is a model or idol. The boss of the other company walks up to Daniel and says that he is a little upset he chose the small company that would only be paying him $100 a day compared to the $100 an hour that he was willing to offer. He asks Daniel if $100 is not enough. He is willing to pay more than how much the small man he is with now is paying him. How about $150 an hour? 200. I will absolutely pay more than what they are offering. Biom grimaces, as his boss is offering to pay someone 5 times more than what he is making, even though he has been working at the company for years. He tells Daniel that since the company he is modeling for is still a small business, if it goes bankrupt, he will soon be out of a job. Daniel remembers how he was treated in his other body when he went to their store with his mom. The man comes back with Daniel's drink. He listens as Daniel tells Mr. Moneybags that he thinks their small business makes a lot better clothes than their catalog, and for their quality, their clothes are a lot more affordable and nicer to wear. The man's eyes go wide as he hears Daniel praise his little clothing business. The boss turns around, not accepting defeat. He tells Daniel that when the short man's business fails, he can give him a call. The short man is still slightly blushing for all the compliments Daniel said about his clothing in the face of the boss. Joy and Biom continue with their shoot, and Biom continues to feel intimidated by Daniel as everyone is looking at him. He is slightly taken aback when he sees Daniel staring at his modeling poses. Daniel thinks to himself that he needs to watch Biom and learn how to model properly, as he has never done it before. Biom takes Daniel's staring completely wrong though, and thinks that he is trying to flirt with his crush, Joy. She blushes when she glances over at Daniel to see that he is watching her. Biom won't go down without a fight though. He pulls some special poses he thought of himself to get the attention of Joy. Biom's posing amazes Daniel, as he had never seen poses like that before. He decides that he should try a few of them. He pulls the hem of his t-shirt to one side and extends his leg to one side, as his other leg bends. The power that emanates from Daniel when he hits this pose shines rays of light into everyone's faces. The coolness energy that comes from Daniel is enough to create a huge explosion that blows everyone away. Some people walking down the street recognize Daniel. The man recognizes Daniel from Facebook and wonders if the shoot is for some promotional content. Biom is completely destroyed by Daniel's most recent attack. Tears start rolling down his face as he hears everyone around completely forget about him and start wondering who the new face is. As Daniel is getting ready with his next pose, he hears his name being called out. It's Joy. She nervously approaches Daniel and tells him that he may not know her, but they are actually Facebook friends. I'm a follower of yours, she says, while barely being able to keep her composure from blushing so hard. She asks Daniel if they can be friends. Some time passes, and we can see Bayom and his boss just watching, staring into space as cameras flicker. Daniel and Joy are doing a couple's shoot. Someone walking past thinks to themselves that they look like the perfect couple. They are wearing matching clothes. Daniel is wearing a black sweater with white lines, and Joy is wearing a white sweater with black lines. The man thanks Joy for offering to shoot with Daniel for free, but he asks her if she doesn't already have a company she is supposed to be modeling with right now. Joy looks up at Daniel and proudly exclaims that with their matching clothes, they look like a real couple. She asks Daniel if he agrees. He gives a vague yes answer. She goes back over to her company, but tells the man that when they are doing a shoot with Daniel again, he can sell her, as she will join for free. This time, it's both the boss and Bayon that are now crying. Joy asks the man that instead of paying her, could he just treat her and Daniel to a dinner, and the man tells her that he is more than happy to do that as compensation, even though he didn't really ask her to join. Bayon is at his breaking limit. Not only did Daniel steal all his attention from the modeling shoot, but he also stole his girl that he was planning on making his girlfriend. Daniel Park. I won't forget this, he boldly tells himself as the tears continue to flow. The three of them are inside a crab restaurant. The man thanks Joy and Daniel for all their hard work. We can see delicious crab soup platter in the middle of the table. Daniel takes a look at the meal and says that it's weird. It also has the body of the crab, as he has only ever had the soup with legs. He asks the two of them if it's normal for crab soup to have the full body, but neither of them knows what Daniel is talking about, so they change subject. Joy grabs Daniel's arm and gets in close next to him. Joy tells Daniel that she is really happy she was able to meet him. A phone call starts coming from Joy's phone, and Daniel asks her if she is not going to answer it. She simply rubs it off, saying that it's just Bayom. The man bows his head, thanking the two of them for making his dreams true. He takes this opportunity to talk a little bit about himself. He admits that he is pretty much broke, as he has messed up his business quite a few times. Daniel is surprised about this, as he tells the man that his clothes are great, so he never should be so low on money. He responds to this by saying that in the beginning, he never wanted to spend money on a model, so he did it himself. However, although he is very confident in his cloth-making abilities, he isn't so confident when getting in front of a camera and doing weird poses. He tells Daniel that his clothes look 200% better when he wears them, so he is very thankful that someone as overqualified as him took the time to be a model for him, even though he was offered a lot more money. He rubs the back of his head and tells Daniel that if he ever wants to model for him again, then he can just hit him up. After finishing up the meal, everyone goes their separate ways. As Daniel starts walking back home, he counts the money that he made from just his 3 hours of work that he did, which was the same as multiple shifts from the convenience store. The money it takes all night to make in my old body, I can make in a few hours in my new body, he thinks to himself. He thinks about how unfair life is for his small body, and how different their worlds really are. However, Daniel is interrupted in this thought by a shouting voice coming from the distance. We can see his mom and a fisherman in a little dispute. The fisherman loudly tells the woman that the crabs aren't so expensive that she would have to pick their fallen legs from the ground. Just buy some ugly and cheap ones, he tells her. His mom persists, asking the man that since he is going to throw away the crab legs anyway, she might as well take them away to clean the place up a little. The grumpy fisherman caves in, telling her that she can go ahead and take only the legs that have fallen out the crates. Daniel watches all this unfold. His eyes grow wide as he starts to understand why at the restaurant he was given a full crab, and at home his mom only makes the soup with the legs. He watches his mom slowly get down to the ground and pick up the crab legs, one by one. We are now back at home. His mom has once again made his favorite crab soup. There is nothing but crab legs. She gleams brightly at the money that he gave her once she arrived home from grocery shopping. "You are all grown up," she proudly exclaims. He sips the soup from the spoon, making a big slurp sound. He tells her that it tastes great. His mom proudly says that she knows it tastes good, as she was the one who made it. His mom stops suddenly, though, when she sees her son crying. Daniel starts crying into the soup, one spoon after the next. "It's good, Mom," he says, as he thinks about all the trouble she has had to go through to make his favorite dish. That night, after the meal, he promises to himself that he would do anything to make enough money for his mother to live a carefree life. However, a future version of Daniel writes at the bottom of the chapter that he would soon come to regret this decision forever. Oh no. Whatever could that mean? We are outside a cinema building. It's midday and a bunch of people are walking around the street. Zach can be seen with his eyes closed, leaning against a wall. He is excited for today, as he is going out with Mira to watch a movie. He smiles a bit, thinking about the precious time together he could spend with his girlfriend. The movie he has chosen to watch is Rocky No. 17. It's a horror story. Zach's heart thumps when he hears his name being called from a distance. He looks to see who it is. It's his date, Mira. She is wearing a pink jacket and skirt with a white shirt underneath. She commends Zach on being at the cinema on time, maybe even a little early. She smiles at him and asks Zach what he wants to watch. Zach thinks to himself that he is the luckiest guy on the planet to be able to go out with someone like Mira. He tells her that they should choose a movie together, but Zach, thinking that Mira is going to want to watch Rocky 17 as well, reserved tickets for the movie in case it was sold out. Mira looks at the options and decides to go with a completely different movie to the one Zach wanted to watch. She chose Sun Descendant, Perfect Man. This is a surprise to Zach, as he thought that Mira was 100% going to want to watch the Rocky horror movie with him. We can see the Perfect Man now being shown in the movie theater. He proudly exclaims that his card has no limit, so they can use it as much as they like. He goes on to brag about how he is a soldier, a cop, a lawyer, and a doctor. Zach is very uninterested in what's going on in the film, but Mira looks like she is really immersed in the movie as she watches intently to see what happens next. Zach cries a little while stuffing popcorn in his mouth, as he was really excited to watch Rocky. He tells himself that he will just have to watch it on DVD one day. As they walk out the cinema to a coffee shop, Mira gleams with amazement as she talks about the movie and how awesome the male lead was. She goes on to list different qualities that she really liked about him, and they all seem to stab Zach in the head, as if she is listing things that he doesn't have. She asks Zach if men like the one in the movie they just watched are real, and Zach sweats a little, telling her that he is sure somewhere in the world there are guys like that. We hear a voice who recognizes Mira, so they both turn their head. We can see an average-looking boy with a larger, overweight friend who doesn't seem to look very friendly. The boy greets Mira, saying it is good to see her, and Mira does the same, remembering that she knows the boy from somewhere. He tells her that he hasn't seen Mira at church in a while, and asks her if she is too busy to attend anymore. Zach's inner monologue is going crazy, trying to figure out the relationship status between Mira and the mysterious person. Mira says that she has been quite busy, but not as busy as him, since he just got accepted into a great university. The boy gleams a bit, saying that he was accepted in early acceptance. He was lucky. Mira moves the conversation to Zach, who she introduces to the boy. Zach needs to look smart and polite to impress Mira, as the boy is showing him off. He decides to stand up and reach over the table with his palm outstretched, ready for a handshake. "Pleased to meet you," Zach says in a polite tone. Everyone is a little shocked, especially Mira, as she has never seen Zach acting like that. The fat guy lets out a laugh and starts to point at Zach, mocking him. "Is this a soap opera?" he asks, while Zach just stands there with his hand outstretched. The boy looks down at Mira to see that she is angry at the fat guy for laughing at Zach. This is when Zach drops the kindness act and starts acting like his old self. "Are you mocking me?" Zach asks as he stares into the fat guy with fierce eyes. He flinches and takes a step back, surprised that the polite guy could be so scary. The other boy uses the opportunity to earn some points with Mira and shakes Zach's hand, introducing himself as one of Mira's church friends. Zach tells himself that the boy is very polite, a lot more polite than him. He apologizes for his rude friend and explains that because he works out so much, his friend's speech patterns have become a lot rougher. "He's not a bad guy," the boy exclaims. Zach is a little awkward at what to say next, so he just rubs his head and says that it's a pleasure to meet him. The fat guy, who is still a little scared of Zach's threat, wonders what's going on, as he acts all polite like a loser, but he has the eyes of a fighter. Mira and Zach's coffee tokens start to buzz, which means their coffee is ready. Zach stands up, saying that he can fetch it. We can see him carrying the 2 coffees on a tray. As he walks, Zach reminds himself to look smart and walk properly, as Mira wants a man who is polite, smart, and knows how to look presentable. His train of thought gets completely derailed, though, when he trips over someone's boot, causing him to hit the tile ground hard, spilling the 2 coffees. The suspicious, well-dressed boy starts apologizing, telling Zach that he didn't mean to trip him, and he just didn't see where he was looking. The fat guy looks over and tells his friend not to apologize. As Zach looks at the guy standing over him, he feels himself getting angry. But it was an accident, so he needs to keep his cool and act polite. He scratches the sore on his face and tells the boy that it's no problem since it's an accident. He gets a cloth and wipes away the spilt coffee, while Mira just looks at Zach in silence. The suspicious boy looks at Mira and is unhappy with what he sees. We can see a little kid with his hands in the air. He is asking his mom if he can play a game since they are at the arcade next to the coffee shop. The kid continues to whine and beg loudly, which irritates Zach. The boy, who is standing next to him, starts to look around, almost as if he is looking to see if anyone is looking in their direction. Suddenly, the boy lunges forward and smacks the living daylights out of the poor boy's head. Zach's eyes grow wide as he watches all this unfold. His hair jumps off of his head in shock, as the boy just smiles, as if he never smacked the poor kid in the head. Zach is trying to process what just happened, when the kid starts crying to his mom, screaming that someone hit him hard. The mother asks her child who it was that hit him, so he looks over to the two guys behind him. The suspicious boy looks around with an innocent smile on his face, while Zach is still trying to process why the boy did that, so he has a serious face, which scares the boy. He picks Zach as the perpetrator, as the other boy looks kind and polite as he looks at him with a smile. Zach, once again, blows the hair right off his head, as he has been framed for smacking an innocent kid. The mother starts asking Zach a bunch of questions about him, and why he thinks it's funny to go around hitting children on the back of the head. Zach starts to wave his hands as he sweats profusely, saying that he wasn't the one who did it. The mother exclaims that he is now a liar, as well as a child hitter. The actual child hitter goes to the kid and kneels down, asking him if his head hurts. His mother exclaims that he is so kind of coming to check on her son. Zach sees that Mira just saw the mother call him a child hitter and liar, and hopes that she doesn't get the wrong idea. He goes to the bathroom to wash up the bruise that he got from the mom who slapped him in the cheek. He vents to himself, saying that the friend from church is up to no good and is out to make him look as bad as possible. This is when he starts to hear two voices coming from a bathroom stall that has smoke floating out of it. One voice calls Zach a loser, and the other voice says that Mira is way too good for him. They start talking trash about Zach and mocking his charade to look polite and kind in front of Mira to impress her. They both agree that he looks stupid in the cast that he has to wear all the time. Zach is surprised that they are finally showing their true colors. He thinks about teaching them a lesson, but remembers Mira talking about the movie and how she loved the male lead actor who was considerate and kind to others. He decides to not go through with it and leaves the bathroom, telling himself that he is a considerate guy. But as he leaves, he hears the name Mira and stops walking for a second. The two guys walk out of the stall. The child hitter says that he texted her a few times before, but she never replied. But now that she is with a loser like Zach, it will be easier to win her heart. He then goes on to call Mira a few words that YouTube doesn't like. And this seems to awaken Zach's true power, as he can't let the child hitter go after saying such terrible things about his girlfriend. He slams the tiles of the bathroom and starts unwrapping the bandages on his arms. Zach has a fierce look on his face and is ready to face the consequences, whatever it is, after he gives the two guys in front of him a proper beating. They think he is joking though, since the two guys think Zach is just a loser who is over-polite and kind to everyone. The fat guy says that he majors in judo, so they call his bluff, and even if he does try anything, they can show him where his place is. Zach just stands there with his fists clenched, ready to strike at any moment. He tells them to stop their talking and just rush at him, as he doesn't want Mira to wait for too long. "I will smash that dirty mouth of yours," he tells them both. Just then, Mira calls from the entrance of the bathroom, asking where he is and why he is taking so long. This puts Zach back in his kind mode and rushes outside the bathroom while putting his jersey back on. As he turns the corner, he tells the two guys to watch their mouth, and that if they even think about saying anything negative about Mira again, he won't have the patience to give them a second chance. However, the two guys still don't take Zach seriously at all, as they think he is weak. They taunt him further, asking if he is running away again, and that he must not wet himself from fright on the way out. Zach continues to just tell himself that this is all for Mira. She wants the ideal man who is polite and considerate, and he will do anything he can to impress Mira. As he gets out, Mira is standing there, waiting for him. Her face starts to shine as she asks what took him so long. She asks Zach if he had to do a number 2. Zach doesn't answer. He thinks back to seconds ago, where the two guys are talking bad about her, and realizes that they are doing all of that because of him. He grabs Mira's shoulders and tells her face to face that he will become a friend that she can be proud of. Mira is a little confused as to what Zach is talking about. There is an awkward silence as she wonders if Zach washed his hands or not after being in the bathroom. As they sit down again, Mira says that she forgot something in the female's bathroom, so she rushes off to go and fetch it. Zach can be seen sitting alone, staring into space. We then get to see that Mr. Beanie and Mr. Necklace are coincidentally also at the coffee shop. They duck in fear as to not get caught as they remember what happened the last time they tried to fight him. Yubin crosses her arms, spotting Zach as well, calling him a gangster. Seems like nothing has changed with him, she says. Both of the guys look at her and think that unlike Zach, she has changed a lot, not mentally but physically. As Mr. Necklace is ducking to hide himself, he hears someone greeting him. It's the fat guy who Zach was just talking to in the bathroom. He bows, asking him if he is going to watch a movie with his girlfriend. Mr. Beanie asks who the boy is, and he explains that it's one of the juniors from the high school he used to run. Mr. Necklace glances at Zach, and the fat boy asks him if Zach tried starting something with him. He asks the fat boy if he knows him, and he replies that they met today, and Zach is a clueless guy who doesn't know how to fight or stand his ground, as he is always sucking up to his girlfriend. The fat guy jumps to conclusions and thinks that Zach tried to start a fight with his senior, so he starts stomping towards the guy sitting by himself, waiting for his date. He stands next to Zach and gives him a good whack right on the back of his head, like his friend did to the small kid. This sets off alarm bells in the three grown-ups, as they know that they have just woken up a sleeping dragon. The fat guy doesn't know this though, and he asks Daniel if he enjoys picking on other people. Zach is confused as to why the chunky dude is going off on him all of a sudden. He starts to tremble from his kept-in rage. The fat guy demands that Zach apologize to his seniors. He points a finger at the grown-ups who are all sweating, as they know Zach is going to want to beat them up again for the disturbance the fat guy made. Mr. Necklace uses this opportunity to pull the fat guy to the side and properly explain who Zach is and how dangerous he can actually be if he is not holding himself back. Mr. Beanie just awkwardly waves to Zach and apologizes for their junior, as Mr. Necklace is telling the fat guy about Zach. He doesn't believe it for a second though, and instead, he just thinks that his seniors are mixing him up with another Zach by mistake. Zach then stands up against the fat guy to show his dominance as he towers over him. As the fat guy analyzes him, he thinks back to how Zach Lee the boxer is described. His eyes are laser beams. He is over 6 feet tall with broad shoulders. After realizing that he might actually be picking a fight with the real Zach Lee, he begins to turn down his aggression, saying that he was a bit rude in the beginning, and they just started off on the wrong foot. He thinks to himself that he needs to grab his friend, and then get the heck out of there. Speaking of the fat guy's friend, we can see him trying to get Mira's number. He tells her that he knows she changed numbers a couple months ago, so she needs to give it to him again. Mira looks at Zach for help, as she doesn't really know what to do in the awkward situation, but Zach doesn't understand what Mira is looking at him for, and he tries to be supportive by telling her that it's okay to give him her number. She caves in and starts putting her number into his phone. He looks over at Zach and boasts that he is getting Mira's number. Zach doesn't do anything, he just looks at him, menacingly. The suspicious guy then proceeds to take it too far and starts doing suggestive hip swinging behind Mira. With no hesitation, Zach darts across the room and delivers a well-deserving and satisfying blow straight to the head of the guy, which sends him flying in a trail of blood. Mira looks in shock at what just occurred. All the grown-ups are also watching the spectacle with their jaws dropped. The fat guy uses this as an opportunity to apologize, as he now understands who Zach really is. But Zach is not in the mood for it now and smashes him up against a wall. He apologizes to Mira. "I guess fighting is the only thing I'm good at," he says sadly, while looking down and away from Mira. He also confesses that his hands healed a while back, and he was just keeping the bandages on so she could keep looking after him. "I'm sorry for hiding it," he says. We can see the aftermath of what one punch did to the guy's face, as blood starts falling down his nose and mouth. People inside the restaurant start screaming for someone to call the police. Mira looks down for a second, taking everything in that's going on around her. She then reveals that she saw what he was doing to her in the reflection of the phone, and that it also wasn't Zach that hit the little kid behind the head. She looks down at the bleeding boy and boldly exclaims that Zach is not the kind of guy to initiate violence for no reason. After everything is resolved, the duo is now back at school the next day, but Zach is still ashamed of his lie to Mira about his arms, so he can't even look at her. He thinks to himself that his relationship with Mira is now ruined and that she will never want to see him again. We can hear some classmates spotting that Zach doesn't have his arm casts anymore. Mira looks at Zach with a sad face, but she doesn't say anything, just watches him in silence. After thinking about all the different times she had to feed him, Mira stands up and walks over to Zach, hitting him on the head. She looks away, blushing a bit as she compliments Zach being able to keep his arm cast live for so long. Zach is a little confused, as he thought that Mira didn't want to ever speak to him again. He asks what the tickets she just gave him are for, and he takes a look at them. It's the Rocky 17 horror movie. Mira tells Zach that she saw that he wanted to watch the movie by how he was staring at the poster at the movie theater. She looks away again, as she is still blushing. "Don't fight today," she says. It is now the later afternoon, after they have watched the movie. But this time the roles are swapped. Zach beams as he exclaims how fun the movie was to watch. He then starts listing off characteristics of the female lead role who he really liked. The words start digging into Mira as she just stares at Zach with a struggled smile on her face. He asks if girls with all those attributes really exist in their world. Mira does not answer straight away. Instead, she starts to put a Hello Kitty plaster around Zach's finger. Mira softly says that she thinks there is indeed a girl out there with all those qualities that he loves. Zach starts to blush after hearing this, Mira as well. They both sit there in silence, blushing.